Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 382, recorded for air December 24th, 2013, the best of the year. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Shutterstock.com. With over 30 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 25% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code MacBreak1213. Hey everybody, Leo Laporte here. Yes, indeed, it is that special time of the year when everybody's gone home for the holidays. It's Christmas Eve, after all. So we're not going to do a regular MacBreak Weekly. We decided to give Andy, Renee, and all our regulars, including this bird, some time off. And, and we're going to do a best of. You like? We've really made it festive, haven't we? Yes, we have. Some of the best moments from 2013 of MacBreak Weekly. And if you stay tuned, you're going to see them all. So stay right here. There. He's going to stay there. And you too. We don't know what the first one is, though, do we? We have no idea. Well, watch as this funny thing happened. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers all your hat and Mac needs. We're all wearing hats today. No one knows why, starting with Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times, who always wears a hat. I think it's in honor of you and your oats.
No, it's first. I guess we shouldn't be ungrateful to the Wall Corporation. I mean, it's nice that you sent us all those like home hair clipping kits for consideration for the show. But I mean, they're hard to use, and let's
kind of a problem.
So thank you for sending them, but we might not have to be able to write about them. Or
by the way, I'm glad to see that you're honoring Dennis the Menace by wearing a Jay Ward hat today.
Jay Ward hat?
Oh, no, it's a Hayward hat.
There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. I looked at
Hayward Fire Department.
Yeah, Hayward Fire Department. All right, there you go. I guess since we have some pros here, we should really, and I think you probably, at least some of you are the market for a Mac Pro. Maybe not me and Andy, maybe not you, Renee, but certainly Scott and Aaron. And with the understanding that this was a sneak peek. What the hell?
So every developer has a fantasy of themselves as sort of an evil genius.
Yeah.
And this is an evil genius computer, right?
Vader's Mac
it's
Pro.
Black, it's a cylinder, and you can imagine yourself, you can plug 3 4K monitors into it. You can just imagine yourself in front of the bank of the enormous monitors. I think it's really going to make me feel like an evil genius.
It's interesting looking. One big fan at the top, and then that what do they call the
unified thermal core?
Yeah, you mean the heat sink going right through the middle?
Yeah, that thing. The G4 Cube.
Well, this is what I have to say. The real question is this a great innovative machine? You know, innovate my ass, as Phil Schiller said, or is it another Cube? And it reminds me a little bit of the Cube. What do you think, Scott? Are you excited?
Well, the Cube was supposed to be mainstream, right?
Right.
So I think that
I bought one the last day of its availability. I'm proud to say.
Did it crack?
Yep.
Yep. I think the thing with the new Mac Pro is people are going to buy it no matter what it looks like. The people who are the market for it want it. They don't care what it looks like.
I wonder if this is not going to stimulate a giant market for Hackintoshes, to be honest with you.
Really, you think?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that is a concern for me, and Ars Technica had a good analysis of this. The dual GPUs, as great as they are soldered on.
Yeah.
There is no upgrade.
It is packaged like a MacBook Air or a new iMac. It is not a Mac Pro of old.
Easy to upgrade, I guess, the RAM, but there's only 4 sockets. So if you really want to go big,
gotta go high density.
You're going to be paying a lot of money for those 8 gig or higher RAMs.
So as for the design, I love that they tried something insane. You know, and they picked the perfect machine to try it with because it's not a mainstream model. It's for the high end, and I love that they decided to take a flyer on making it in the U.S. because it's the right model.
I do like that.
Isn't it awesome? Like the old Mac Pro was like the Escalade. It was the high end, but it had lots of room for kids and cars and everything you want in the back. And the new one's a Lamborghini. It's not a truck. I mean, there's no room in the back
for
anything.
It was a country Squire. That thing was a boat.
It was an expensive boat.
But I loved it. I mean, I have 4 drives in mine, and I think there are a lot of people who love the idea. You got all those drive bays. It's easy to get into.
But Thunderbolt too. So I mean, you can go out to drive bays, and you can go out to potentially directly to Retina Thunderbolt displays when they ship.
Right.
Yeah. I think the point is that Apple didn't decide to abandon pro users, but they decided to let go of a certain kind of pro user. So they want the kind that really needs super high performance, the kind that would, for God's sakes, need 3 4K screens on their desktop at the same time. But not the sort of person who's like, I'm sorry, but it's taking entirely too long to crack these 15,000 passwords. I'm going to have to install 8 Radeon cards.
It's actually a Bitcoin. It's a Bitcoin mining machine. Let's face it.
Well, if I plug in 3 4K screens to, what am I going to do with the rest of my 4K screens?
Well, what are you going to do with the rest of your millions of dollars? Because let's think how much the Pro is going to cost by itself, and then how many 4K screens can you afford?
I saw John Siracusa last night doing a mental breakdown of how much the components were going to cost, like how much those CPUs would cost, how much those GPUs would cost, and it's not going to be cheap. Like the MacBook Air was fairly cheap, the iMac was fairly cheap.
Are you looking at a $10,000 machine here?
I don't think 10,000, maybe 4,000 to 5,000, unless they get a really good deal on parts.
I was checking with some builders myself yesterday afternoon, and that was their back of the envelope guess too. That they don't think it could be sold for less than $4,000. They'd be surprised if they didn't hit a $5,000 to $6,000 target, though.
And then add a monitor. That's without monitor.
And pro level margins are pretty good for Apple.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking $6,000 out the gate. But I paid $6,000 for my last Mac Pro once I stocked it appropriately.
But you could change the drives. You could change the graphics cards. This one you can't.
And I have changed the graphics card. I upgraded the graphics card a month or two ago with a 2950. And this was another point Ars Technica made, that Mac OpenGL drivers are so god-awful that I saw no speed improvement, none, on a much faster card. And on Windows, a ton of improvement. And I think Apple even said this, and this is going to get a little geeky, but they said OpenCL. They want you, instead of CUDA, they want you to go with OpenCL.
OpenGL 4 point something and OpenCL, yeah.
What is the Pro? You're a programmer, so I don't think it's quite as an issue for you. It's more for a graphics or video guy.
But
right?
you know why they want to do it is they want to be able to move between different graphics card providers. They don't want you to go in CUDA. They want you to using an
CUDA's
open
NVIDIA
standard.
only.
That's right.
OpenCL is
They want to be able to put ATI or whatever cards inside it.
Right, mostly ATI.
Yeah.
I don't know where the whatever might be.
And also
Joe's GPU. I don't know.
The strangest thing, like there was a lot of strange things this event, but one of them is that Apple did a sneak preview. I mean, it was a perfect event for a Pro machine. We discussed that last week, but it's not shipping until later in the year, so it was way ahead of. Usually, Apple comes out and says available today, available in 2 weeks. And some of that might be still chipset related. Some of that might just be them not finishing it.
Well, it's not a Haswell, is it? It's an Ivy Bridge, I think. That's what Anand quickly jumped in and said.
There was some debate yesterday about whether
there is a Haswell Xeon. So,
but it wasn't the one that Apple would probably use is still coming. It's not available yet. Right. And if they use the last ones, then people will be upset because it'll mean there will be a spec update to the next ones.
Right.
But the point is usually that Apple won't announce a product they can't sell immediately. Because they don't want to cannibalize something else, but no one's buying Mac Pros right now, so they're like, what the heck, let's show them.
Yeah, nothing to cannibalize.
That's exactly right.
In fact, there's a lot of reason to do it now, just to stem whatever flow there might be of Pros away from Macintosh.
Exactly.
Say, hey, we are going to do something for you.
Yeah, the opposite situation from what they're usually in, where they don't want to cannibalize the product that they have. This time they want to stop it.
It's Museum of Modern Art beautiful. I mean, I'm not denying that.
And it's shiny. It's not beaten at all.
It is aluminum. I thought it might be polycarbonate because it looks
like a Cylon.
If it has a little red light in the back that goes up and down, I'm buying it.
That sounds like a great mod, actually.
And when you take the housing off, it looks like Darth Vader in his meditation chamber before they put the helmet back on. I can't believe that was an accident.
No, by the way, it is about the size of his helmet. It's only about 8 inches
and it's
tall.
1/8 the volume of the previous Mac Pro.
Tiny.
Yeah,
it's tiny.
But because it doesn't have any spinning drives in it, it only has SSD.
And they had several of them on display on the third floor of Moscone. So they had 2 that were closed and 2 that were open. It looks exactly like Andy said, like someone came in, the clamps took the helmet, pulled it straight up, and you see the back of the skull all on the side. Yeah. It's beautiful looking inside and out, though. I mean, they do the aesthetics.
I'm not denying it's gorgeous. Yeah. I think what it would be, though, is overpriced and not very upgradable. And with how many USB? Just 3 or 4 USB ports?
Strangely, a lot of FireWire.
Yeah. And there's FireWire on it?
Yeah. But here's the heartbreaking thing. It is a beautiful object, and it'll be beautiful for about 10 minutes until the user is done admiring it, and they put it on the desk and start plugging all these crappy cables into it, and then 3 weeks later, when it's been like recycling all the dust in the office through the system for 3 or 4 weeks, it's gonna. I mean, I don't know a lot of I know a lot of high-end computer users. I don't know a lot of high-end computer users that are fastidious about dusting.
But when you turn it, it lights up, Andy. When you turn it, it lights up.
Oh my God, I gotta have it now. I'm thinking it's really a very rich person's home theater PC is what it really is. It should be quiet with that big fan.
I officially give myself permission to hate anybody who buys this machine as a home theater PC.
Andy.
I officially am okay. And especially if you have to buy it because you have 3 4K projection screens.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying.
And you can AirPlay to the screens too now.
It's spite, but still, I'm going to own that. I'm going to hate you for that.
I apologize in advance, Andy.
I'm sorry, how many people are that big a fan of the Spice Girls movie, Renee? I mean,
right here, sir.
In 3D, baby. On 4K screens. By the way, if you go to apple.com/Mac Pro, you get a, I should do that again, a little, can you see my computer? Little space animation. Da, 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 dum. I want to throw a, bring me over the 25th anniversary Mac, because I want to kind of compare the two. This is Apple's 25th anniversary Mac. Wow, if you paint this black.
That's where all the
it's gotten
unsold
taller
ones
and thinner.
No innovation, my ass.
That was...
This has a lovely DIN plug for the speaker. Look at that. That's like 50,000 pin.
I've seen in the Apollo program.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to bring the whole thing over. It's okay. We just wanted to show the CPU. But
is that 4K?
The rest of it. Yeah, that's not quite 4K. That might be a half K display.
If I put all my iPads together, it would add up to 4K.
Anyway.
That must have come for something.
I'm sorry to be so negative. I shouldn't be so negative. It's a beautiful thing. But I think what I'm wondering is, are pros going to flock to this? We don't know. I mean,
can they rack mount it?
No. Well, that's, cylinders are not the most efficient. Well, actually, they are the most efficient way for that volume, aren't they?
They're just hard to pack.
But they're not most efficient when it comes to putting other things around them.
Right, they're the most efficient in units of 1.
Yeah. And, for cooling, they're probably a very efficient. I don't know, but I would guess that's a very efficient setup. And, it's a beautiful page at apple.com/Mac Pro. So you click it, and something will happen. Scroll? I'm on Linux. I can't scroll.
Show title.
Yeah, while we were watching this video during the keynote, I was thinking to myself, this is either a promo video for a really awesome desktop PC or a really bad Will Smith movie.
Up to 2 times faster, considering the last one was 2.5 years ago. Yeah. 2 times is kind of... actually, that's compared to the current Mac Pro 2.5 years ago.
There is a theory that Apple needs a hypercar. That they have to have something at the top that's sort of their inspirational drip down.
I don't know. I mean, I have to give Apple a lot of credit in that the people who are buying this, they don't really care about cool desktop design. They just want the amps. They just want the power. So the fact that they really went to town on this, probably knowing that even given that this is going to be a one of a kind machine that they can charge thousands of dollars for, that gave them a certain amount of liberty. But I'm not sure. When I wrote about it this morning, it's on the Sun-Times site and the Grid Chicago site. I did say that what I like the most about this is that this is not an aspirational device. This is designed to actually be put to work and not simply admired. I mean, you could put your cardboard Quaker Oats box on the top of it and just not even admire it at all, and you'd still be getting every single dollar of value you'd be getting out of it.
Do you find it odd they put AC in 802.11 AC in there when they offer? Well, actually, they have an AC airport.
Yeah, they announced the new
Extreme
AC
too.
Airport Extreme.
AD is literally just around the corner and has some significant benefits over AC. This is not an upgradable machine, folks. You're buying, in my opinion, you're going to be buying
it's the first
2013 technology.
Apple has a history of first ones, like the first MacBook Air, the first Retina MacBook Pro, the first unibody MacBook.
I think this is going to sell kind of like the Cube and the 25th anniversary Mac. It's a specialty product. How about, let me ask the audience, because there's probably a lot of pros in the audience. There's a huge audience here. By the way, thank you all for being here. This is an unusual number of people for MacBreak Weekly. Dan Benjamin in the back. It's great to see you. No, he's just wearing a 5x5 shirt. So, how many of you will buy this? One guy. Yeah. Anybody else? Why would you buy this, sir? Just shout it out.
I do video production.
You do video production.
Yeah.
I would wonder if some people might say, you know, gosh, I could get a PC that is going to be upgradable, maybe a little bit more, you know, effective and certainly more affordable. You think they're going to consider? Would they consider that? I don't know. You have to Hackintosh it if you want to run Final Cut. They did say, by the way, Final Cut will be updated for this.
Yeah,
machine,
absolutely.
Right?
So one of my concerns is it vents out the top. And I know my wife is going to lay a binder or something right on top of it. And the whole thing is going to melt down.
Maybe
There's going to be
it'll
a
float.
puddle of Mac Pro there on my desk.
No, the good news is...
Can you video that?
Exactly. The binder will slowly rise in the air.
I was going to say that's actually the advanced version of the CPU monitor. You just put like a hollow plastic ball on top of it. You can tell by how much it's hovering over that vent how much the CPU is overstressed. So try to like power down before it gets halfway towards the ceiling.
As we're here today to discuss what is over Rene Ritchie's right shoulder, a gold iPhone. Well, I'm sorry, it's not gold, it's champagne.
Yes.
So, okay, I got to put you and Andy on the spot because you told me there'd be no fingerprint reader. You were pretty adamant about that. You told, and I don't know if we even talked gold iPhone. I think I poo-pooed that. I'm still poo-pooing it. It seems bizarre. So what's the story? You have the scoop.
I started asking because the analyst who was talking about it is one of the only... There's different kinds of analysts. There's financial analysts and industry analysts. And financial analysts are chronically unreliable. But among financial analysts, and I don't remember how to pronounce his name.
Ming-Chi Kuo.
Ming-Chi Kuo, that's correct. He said it 2 or 3 times, and he's one of the more reliable ones. So I started asking around, and on Friday I managed to get at least 2 people to confirm, I don't want to use the word confirm, but to tell me that yes, indeed, there is a gold iPhone 5S, and it will be available along with the other models. So no sapphire Audi belly button on it, but a gold iPhone.
So this is not the color iPhone, the 5C, the less expensive iPhone. This is the main line. There'll be black, white, and champagne.
Yeah, for people some people think it's going to be like C3PO gold, but it's really going to be this silver and white model now.
It's a new color. Is that the Pantone color? C3PO.
What color would you like your car? I would like it to be C3PO gold.
I'm hoping for crow. Gold.
So somebody in the chat room said this is the Paris Hilton edition, Boffin says.
It's just light. Like if you imagine the current white and silver iPhone and you just bring it a little bit towards gold. And I started trying to think why Apple would do this. And you know, it's 6 years into their product cycle now. It's a mature product. There's not going to be any big outward differentiator between the 5 and the 5S the way there are when they actually change the physical design on those years. It's more competitive than ever. And doing something as simple as using gold anodization, which is also the easiest color to anodize an iPhone. Really? Much easier than black. Yeah, real black is really hard, but gold is easy. You just add a little bit of iron oxide, and you know, voila, the chemical reaction takes over for you. It's easy to do. It adds a little bit of variety to the lineup. Gold is not a low-end sort of a color, so it kind of preserves the iPhone as a premium product.
It's kind of a tacky color, some say, though. Yeah.
Well,
it's a little Kim
thought
Kardashian.
That too, but it turns out that the vast majority of aftermarket iPhone colorings are gold. People, more than half the people who want to get their iPhone colored after they buy it from Apple go for the gold option.
I
so
also see a lot of bejeweled cases out there, but I don't think people are going to do that. Apple would ever do that. You know, I put
the new Apple ad for it in the notes.
Chad. Oh, good. Let's play that ad, Chad. You know what? I looked at it. I've been completely dismissive. I kind of want to. I'm such a sheep. I want it.
You're going to get it.
I want it. That's the one I'm going to get. Here's the ad.
I has it. I like the best.
See, this is
this one. But I also like savings the money. So when DirecTV tell me 5 months free for most premium televisions package.
Not quite Vladimir Putin, but very close.
Jump in it.
So is this for the Russian market? Is that what we're making a gold iPhone? I love it. I would do that. If I had a little gold giraffe, I would do that.
Don't tell me that a teacup giraffe would not sell.
It would sell.
I think get into that product space.
I think it just should be iPhone Gold. Opulence. I has it.
I has it. So what do you guys think?
I think it's very likely. I think in some of the other cultures, I think that it's very popular, and I think that there's quite a few people in the United States that'll buy a gold one. I mean, it's fine. I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool if they go. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say that this is the phone that you don't want to use after Labor Day.
The white shoe phone.
Put away the white shoes and the white slacks. You're done until next season. So it becomes your seasonal iPhone that as you're in the Hamptons, you bring out your gold iPhone and then you use it. But otherwise, I think midwinter, except around the holiday season, it's a little tacky. It's a little much. So I think it will do very well in Palm Desert. It will do very well in Florida. Hollywood will be fine. Those kind of kitschy countries will do okay with it as well. But I don't see kind of your normal geek carrying this thing around.
Yeah. But I couldn't help but think of that episode of The Simpsons where Lisa decides she wants to revolutionize the child's doll industry and spends the entire episode and gets all kinds of like celebrity like feminist experts in to develop this brand new wonderful like role model positive doll that it turns out that all the girls want, and then the Malibu Stacy, like the Barbie people, decide we have to head this off. Why don't we just bring out the same old Malibu Stacy, only now with a new hat? And then all the girls want the Malibu Stacy with the new hat. I think the gold tone might be Malibu iPhone with a new hat. That's all.
Yeah.
Well,
especially like this year, we've seen like so many other cool phones. No, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I think that Apple's missing a trick by only having black and white, because people do like to personalize a phone. They do like to have something that really is identifiably theirs. And although I don't think they can on the iPhone 5 they can make like 9 different colors and keep that kind of supply chain going. But if one way to remind people that this is still a cool modern phone is to introduce a new metallic color, that's good. I think that the iPhone 5 got sort of slammed a little bit because it didn't look all that different, and it sort of swept aside the idea that, well, the camera is very much improved, the CPU is much improved, they changed so much about it. The fact that it doesn't have like a transformer set of hover wheels on it doesn't mean that it's not a new great phone. Sometimes if you want to give the people what they want to convince them that there is something new going on, psychology sells. Sell it.
Aren't we being apologists, though? This is such a shock to have this from Apple, isn't it?
Well, they made the Dalmatian blue iMac, and they made the the flower power iMac.
Yeah. How well did that sell?
I'm guessing it wasn't the top seller.
Yeah.
It was awesome in the hate.
I mean, people are accessorizing all of their iPhones anyway with cases and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, it's just Apple making money on it instead.
And there's one. I mean, people play to their egos too. I mean, one of the biggest criticisms we keep hearing is that people are like, oh, no one's gonna know I have the new one. I need people to know that I have the new one.
That's it is a big thing. Usually, Apple. I mean, come on, Andy, you're the guy who says puts Apple up on the pedestal. Say Apple wouldn't do that. It doesn't. They don't need to pander, right?
I don't. Well, no. This is. I don't think this is pandering at all. I mean, if they have numbers saying that this is a really, really popular color, and they are thinking that perhaps black and white is getting a little too boring for their taste, and if, as rumor has it, there's going to be another phone that has less expensive and have lots and lots of colors, isn't it smart to sort of extend that conversation by saying, and we've decided to add a third color to the iPhone, top of the line iPhone 5S as well. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Giving people options to have something that's a little bit more personal, a little bit more to their taste, that doesn't mess around with anything. The problem comes when they decide to, we're going to make a stylish new phone because it has to look visually different from the last one, or else people won't have that sort of premium brand. Hey, I'm part of the best and the brightest. I don't care that I still had 12 months left of my contract. I paid the fee because I want to be seen as having the new version of the iPhone. I don't think that's that at all. I think it's just that if gold looks cool, if they built one and everyone in the room said, "Wow, that's cool. We want to make that." That is a definite Apple decision.
All right, that's all of this is just color, just cosmetics. Let's get down to the nitty gritty, the nub of the matter, the fingerprint reader.
Yes.
Now, you say now it's no longer an Audi, Rene Ritchie, it's an innie?
It was never going to be. I mean, that was one part of the report that, because so the last I heard a few months ago, they were like 80% of the way there. And Mark Gurman had an excellent article up saying that the reason it didn't leak a lot was because it was being tested externally through a little cable. And now the gold iPhone prototype actually has it built into the device, and they're testing it that way. And it's not a swipe, it's not anything fancy, it's just your finger on the home button. It looks pretty much the way you expect home button to look. My only question is how Apple balances the reliability, because the more points you try to detect, the higher likelihood for error when someone's just trying to use it quickly, or you have a lot of different kinds of people trying to use the phone. But apparently it's in the prototype, and it looks like it's good for the pipeline.
From Mountain Lion 2, what's the cat's name?
I'm hoping for Sabretooth.
I like it. Although, wasn't the original OS?
That would have been good.
They had the Sabretooth. With the
should have been the first one.
All right.
No, do you think that sometimes they wonder about, well, let's like naming a kid and trying to find out, does this name rhyme with any rude words? They're thinking let's have a list of every stupid tech pundit. Like, okay, Mac OS 10.9 Sabretooth proves that the Mac is getting long in the tooth. Okay, we can't use that. Damn it.
What's Anako going to spin this on us this time?
No, the only thing I've ever heard
was the voice of reason. The Nocto is the light that shines and causes everything to grow. That's all.
The only thing I've heard is Lynx, which rhymes with Finks. So I don't know. So let's recap. There really weren't many surprises. A new iPhone or two is here. Renee Ritchie, you, of course, the keeper of the rumor mill. Anything that was not in the rumors?
I mean, it's hard now, Leo. If you read the book and then go see the movie, did you spoil the movie for yourself? You put all this information online. People don't have to read it, but I think it's almost like a compulsion. Mm-hmm. And there were like minor details, especially software things, like exactly what they were going to do with the camera app or the pricing for the iPhone 5C. I thought was one of the most interesting things. But all the major stuff leaks out of the supply chain. And also there's references in the beta software that people find. And it's really hard to keep a secret now if you go on the internet.
Take some of the fun out of these events. Take some of the ooh and ah. There's no one more thing, really.
Well, and I think when Tim came on, they kind of abandoned the one more thing. That was really Steve's trademark, and I feel like they didn't want to continue with that and say, no, you know, that's a bygone era. Let's just announce what we have to announce and call a special event when there's that one new thing.
So you can go to the Apple Store now, but you can't order. We'll just run down real quickly what the announcements were. 2 new iPhones, an iPhone 5C, which is, as predicted, a plastic-backed, essentially iPhone 5, unchanged iPhone 5. That you can pre-order September 13th in the U.S., Canada, China, interestingly, Germany, England, you know, the usual suspects. They'll have it in 100 countries by the end of the year. But as you say, the price a little bit disappointing if you were looking for a much less expensive iPhone. In fact, I thought, and I think, Renee, you postulated this as well, that the 5C would mean that Apple could eliminate the 4S from their product line and move everybody to the 5 platform for iOS 7. Not the case. They are still offering an iPhone 4S. That'll be the free phone, $99 subsidized for the 5C, $199 subsidized for the 5S. The unsubsidized price of the 5C, the so-called inexpensive iPhone, is only $100 less than the 5S.
Yeah, that's
$549.
I think that's a surprise because, you know, I thought this event, the play would be that this is really about Apple expanding their market for a couple of reasons. One, the less expensive iPhone, the security because they wanted to get into the military and other markets like that. If the unsubsidized phone is really up to $550, I think it makes it still a tough sell in China, in Europe, where people are not accustomed to having contract phones, but instead they do buy their phones unsubsidized. And there are clearly other manufacturers that are coming way under that price.
Nokia, for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is well, nobody thought that Apple would make a really cheap phone. In fact, there was a pretty good argument that they shouldn't, that that's not how Apple does things. But it did, you know, a number of analysts said if you can get it down to $350 as an unsubsidized or prepaid phone, that you will have a huge market for it. They didn't. Is that a surprise, Renee?
It's not a surprise. I mean, if you followed Apple for any length of time, you know that they really don't care to have every customer. They know exactly which customers they want, and they're customers that are willing to spend a certain amount of money on a product. If you looked at the iPod Mini, the Mac Mini, the iPad Mini most recently, their pattern is to take a little bit of money off the price. You know, they have a certain share of the market, and they know that by reducing it $100 or $200, they can increase that addressable market a little bit. There was one spec bump that surprised me. The FaceTime camera now gets It's a backlit illuminated sensor, and I think it's a little bit better on the micron scale. But it's essentially an iPhone 5 that has a plastic back, which means it's easier to manufacture because they had a lot of problems with the anodization on the 5. So it depends what problem you think Apple was trying to solve, and that problem was never going to be offer a $200 or a $300 iPhone.
5 colors: white, red, yellow, blue, and green. And then Apple, seeing, I think, a lot of money slip by them in the brisk accessory market, has decided to offer complimentary colorful cases with holes in them so that you can mix and match the colors and have the holes shine through with another color. It is an A6 chip, 8-megapixel iSight camera. That's the new camera in the front. 4-inch Retina display, LTE. You know, it's basically an iPhone 5 with the exception of that iSight camera. The old chip, no fingerprint reader. The price is the thing that does a little bit surprise me. Unsubsidized, SIM-free, 16 gigabytes, $549, 32 gigabytes, $649.
I don't think we know what it's going to be in China yet. I mean, that's the big question, because if China Mobile goes through, we don't know what the subsidy deal or the contract between them would be. And, you know, it's hard to imagine this will be a $550 phone on China Mobile.
That was a little bit of a surprise. We thought maybe they would mention China Mobile. This has been the other shoe to drop in China. That's the biggest carrier in China, and they have not been on China Mobile because of their restrictive, demands of Apple. Apple wasn't willing to see them, and I don't know if they've made that deal or not.
Well, I was wondering if in the stream to China, there was just a little footnote there saying, by the way, don't tell other people, but this is what we're going to charge you for it. Because obviously they want that market. And
right.
At this price point, I don't know.
Right.
They did make a big deal about it being the most widespread LTE, like the most compatible LTE device, phone ever. And they did announce NTT.Docomo in Japan, which had previously not carried the iPhone. So they are at least pushing those international boundaries still.
Some of that's because of the technology catching up. All the phones now are able to, and I know you talked to Sasha Segan about this on PC Magazine on your iMore podcast. All of the phones now, thanks to Qualcomm and other chip manufacturers, are able to support far more LTE bands. And that's very important. You don't want to make multiple phone models. Currently, Samsung does. They have a Qualcomm chip in the U.S. models and an Exynos Samsung chip in the international models. And that's because of the different radio bands.
And the certification processes are really onerous in some jurisdictions as well. But there's 40 discrete segments to be supported in LTE, and that's hard to get on one chip because everyone uses there's not that many bands, but everyone uses a slightly different part of that band because there's a range there. And then some people have wide support, some people have narrow support. It's much trickier. It really is a black science to get it done.
So it says pre-order September 13th on the 5C. Chad?
We have Mr. Nako on the line.
Hey, good news. Andy Anako, who's at One Infinite Loop. He's at the town hall where he's... have you been up to the demo room, Andy?
I'm in the demo room right now, as a matter of fact.
Tell us what you see.
Big crowd of people. I think that this is going to be like site zero for whatever next pandemic disease comes in, because everybody's putting their fingers on this exact same 1 square centimeter area of 5 different sample iPhone 5S's to try out the fingerprint authentication. It's working well enough that they're just letting everybody, through a guy's there to guide you, but everybody can basically train their own fingerprints and see how well it works.
That's pretty impressive that you could train it so quickly that you can test it and train it, while having a few minutes with the phone.
Yeah, and it does work just fine. I mean, it's the really cool Apple interface too. When you set up when you train it for your fingerprint, there is a grayed out fingerprint on the screen. And what it asks you to do is keep tapping and holding, tapping and holding, tapping and holding that button with the same finger. And the more it learns, the more of those gray loops and whirls and that fake fingerprint get filled in with red. So you know that, okay, I don't have to do this for 10 hours. It's getting more and more red. I'm closer and closer to success. And once you're done, then it asks you to now please try holding this with other edges of that same finger, so I know what the side of your thumb looks like, what the tip of your thumb feels like. There is, once you've got it registered in, there is a brand new sort of semi-gesture to learn that I screwed up when I first tried it. You you click the home button as usual to wake it up, but then you lightly rest your finger on the home button without depressing it in order to get the authentication. So what I was doing is I was pressing and holding and activating voice command time and time again. But once you got it kind of into your head that click one, wakes up the phone, resting it authenticates you, now you're in. And it only takes like a half a second for you to go in. It's not like you have to tap and wait. So it works really good. You can authenticate as many as 5 fingers. And I tried doing it with like not the hand that I'd authenticated with. It wouldn't let me in. So it seems to work really, really slick.
Apple says they're going to use this. We'll talk more about the 5S in a little bit. This is a 5S only feature. But Apple says they're going to use this not only for unlocking the phone, but also for authentication on the Apple Store, the App Store, the iTunes Store. That means they trust it enough to say, yeah, this is as good as a password.
Yeah, that really surprised me. I was pretty sure it was going to be used for unlocking. I kind of thought that, not that they wouldn't trust it for e-commerce, but I thought that at least want to see, well, let's get 5 million people using this first just to satisfy ourselves that it's okay to unleash the hounds. But yeah, they're confident enough about it to make this a day one feature. That's really impressive about how much they feel about it. And also, I think it really does speak to how much CPU power is in the new A7 processor. I mean, every single thing they put into that presentation today was fueled by the fact that they've got like an amazing horsepower CPU inside that phone.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Let me get, just while you're there in the demo room, any other impressions? Did you get to play with the camera?
Not yet, because there's still a big crowd, and it's hard to see how well the camera works. I did check out the flash. The flash certainly looked like an immediate improvement over what I usually expect from an iPhone. Instead of that weird greenish bluish color, it seems nicely balanced. It still has the same problem where it's an LED, so it's not quite so powerful, but you're already immediately getting really nice natural color. As far as the other things that the camera promises to do, I'm just not in a position to really check that out yet, so I don't want to say. The demo photos they put look very good.
Apple's saying they have dual LEDs, one on the blue end of the spectrum of the color spectrum and one in the warmer yellow end of the spectrum, and that they can mix the two to give you a flash that matches the ambient light of the room up to 1,000 different settings.
That's what they said. So variable power for each one, so variable color. Really cool stuff.
That's a great idea, and I don't think anybody's doing anything anywhere near like that. What were your impressions of the presentation itself?
Again, typical Apple presentation, really tight, really focused. They know they have our attention for the first 15 minutes, no matter what they said. So that's a good opportunity to talk about how happy they are to be in so many international markets. They showed off the revamped Stanford store. I think that we're going to be not too long before we see them be proud about the revamped San Francisco store. But really, it was 2 or 3 very, very concise messages that were repeated over and over again through implementation in different ways, meaning that we have this hot new processor that lets us do a million things better. Like, again, you could spend so much time just talking about the camera, where it's doing things like, well, we're gonna sort of pre-take every version of this photo when you click the shutter, and then we're going to combine the best parts of every single iteration of that photo to give you the best possible picture. So although they're not doing something as cool as Nokia is doing with that immense like 1020 Lumia sensor, they're saying, well, we're going to make a marginal improvement to the hardware, but we're going to open up the potential of this really cool CPU to build a synthetic image that's better than anything we could do for real. And the other secret message was, international. One thing was, we all know that they're talking about the 5C being, here's our inexpensive phone for international markets. But the other thing is that they also made sure that everybody knew that this has more radios in it than any other iPhone we've made, and that's the 5C. And that's their way of saying that this is a truly international phone. And just to make sure that I get this in too, I did spend some time with the 5C. It definitely underscores the point that plastic cases are not the problem. Badly designed plastic phones are the problem. It doesn't feel like a plastic case because of that steel frame. My fingertips are sort of telling me that no, this isn't plastic. This is enameled metal. Instead of plastic, it really feels like a solid, well-made item.
Does it feel like the plastic on the Nokia phones? That kind of soft touch polycarbonate, or something else?
No, again, to me, it felt more like enamel. I wouldn't call it slippery, but it has that sort of, it's hard to articulate, but like that sort of like dense feel to it. It doesn't have like a pebbly surface to it. Right. It doesn't have a rubbery texture to it. Like I said, enamel is as close as I can get to explaining the feel of it.
In effect,
it really doesn't feel like a $99 phone either.
It is kind of, in effect, a coating around an metal frame.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else, Andy, before we let you go? Because I'm sure you want to get back over there and play with those phones some more.
Not much. I got to shake Elvis Costello's hand. That was pretty cool. Got to shake Tim Cook's hand, which I've never actually met him before. So now I've met Tim Cook, met the vice president. So this has been a very good day for me. Somehow coming up with the right thing to say that didn't make me sound like an ass to somebody that I really, really respect.
You shook Al Gore's hand, Tim Cook's hand, and Elvis Costello's hand in one half-hour period. That's pretty darn impressive.
That was, well, again, I was about to say and not embarrass myself, but you know what, Leo, the day's still young. I'm sure that I can still look like a total jerk to most of the known world.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. Andy Iannacco, he's there at the town hall in Cupertino, California, where Apple has just announced 2 new phones. We'll let you go, Andy. Go play with, you get your choice. Go play with Elvis, Al, Tim, or the phone. Your choice.
My new close personal friends.
Thank you, Andy Iannacco. Great to have you here on the West Coast. Our show today brought to you by Shutterstock.com. If you are in the need for some holiday cheer for your website, a menu, a blog, Shutterstock is the place to go with over 30 million royalty-free stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and videos. I'm a big fan of Shutterstock. I know you have heard us talk about it before. Have you set up your Shutterstock account so you can make your Shutterstock light box? Here's one for 2014. This is appropriate. Happy New Year. Oh, look at these. These are great. The thing is about Shutterstock is, of course, there's 30 million images, but there's another 10 to 20,000 images every single day. Images from talented artists, each of them vetted for quality and offered to you in a royalty-free form. You can either buy image packs or subscribe, but for free, you can create a lightbox. This is a lightbox of 2014 images, for instance. Go to Shutterstock.com and take a look at the amazing search engine. Allows you to search for all kinds of topics, of course, holidays, but then you can add an adjective. You can say, I just want photos or just want vector art. I want the orientation to be horizontal. I want it to be, and you even got a color picker to fit my palette. And now I'm going to get all the horizontal magenta vector illustrations for the holidays. And it did. It worked. Now, the reason you might want to create a free account, you don't need to give them a credit card, is because then you can use a lightbox. So you can save images that you like. You can also share those images with somebody else. It's really nice to have a Shutterstock account. I don't know how often you're going to want to look for magenta vector holiday art, but if you wanted to, you could. Very powerful search engine. Don't forget the footage, too. Really beautiful stuff. We use it all the time. That's how we did. Press the S key. Well, it puts snow on me. A lot of these clips are, oh, wait a minute. Here's better snow. Let's have this snow fall on me. Can we do that instead of the other snow that we were using? This is great because it's keyable. It's got a track mat. High def. Variety of stuff, and when you create a Shutterstock account, you can even get free footage every week. I think Shutterstock's great. I know you'll like it too. So visit Shutterstock.com. Use our offer code MacBreak1213 when you decide to buy, and you'll get 25% off on your new account. Really handy if you get the subscription plan. Shutterstock.com, the offer code MacBreak1213. We thank them for their support all year long for MacBreak Weekly. Now back with more of the best of MacBreak Weekly. So, Andy.
Darling.
Sweetheart. You, my friend, you have admitted now publicly something that I've suspected for some time. You no longer use the iPhone as your day-to-day telephone.
I got to quote Nathan Lane here. I didn't feel as though I need to have any sort of dramatic coming out. I feel that people sort of assumed, well, he's male, he's single, he likes to customize and modify electronics. I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
And he does have an awfully colorful house. So you wrote an article for techhive.com in which you say, I've given up the iPhone and I am now a Samsung Galaxy S3 user.
Yeah, and it's a piece I've been writing for, like, believe it or not, like 3 or 4 weeks now. This is part one. It's gonna be in 3 parts, arriving every morning on TechHive and Macworld. And as I said, like in the very, very introduction, hoping that people would actually read past like the first paragraph of it, that this isn't a piece about why anybody should switch from the iPhone. This is definitely not a piece about like what Apple is doing wrong. It's just a piece about a guy who got a phone, the reasons why Android is a better choice for me personally right now. And I thought that by being really careful about, well, here are the 4 things about Android that really got me to switch. Here are the things I was worried about Android that didn't turn out to be true. Here are the things that turned out to be absolutely true that are problems, but they're not such a big deal that they trump everything else. Because unfortunately, I think the water's been polluted a bit in the past year, where people who really want to see Apple fail and fail hard. And so there are a lot of people who would like to, who keep kind of flooding the comment boards and blogs with, well, here's why I'm giving up on Apple. They no longer innovate and they're no longer easy to use. And that's really not the case here. I think that if there's a way to summarize that 6,000 words, it's just that I think that Apple in the past couple of years has been a little bit more aggressive in targeting a specific kind of consumer, someone who really is willing to take whatever is given them if it's well designed, who doesn't really mind if they don't have quite so much choice about it, who will take options that are hardwired in and doesn't really matter so much to them to customize the experience to make a better fit for them, and who don't really have a whole lot of demands about the design, the physical design of a phone. So if you're willing to simply take the operating system that's given to you, accept the behavior of the operating system as it's delivered to you, and then simply deal with the fact that there is going to be one phone a year, one design, one concept, take it or leave it, that's going to work great for you. For me, the way that I use a phone, which is as a very, very active device. I mean, this really is a post-PC device in my pocket. I'm using it all the time to capture data, capture ideas, manage projects. It's what I use when I'm not actually behind a keyboard and I'm actually still getting actual work done. For that kind of stuff, I just found that the iPhone was just wanting on a bunch of different levels. And I'm in the unusual position. I mean, most of the people in this conversation are in this position where they get an opportunity to try out pretty much everything. I mean, I get pretty much every phone that's every big name phone that's ever released. I get to try it for a couple of weeks to a month. And it's just that last year I found that every time that I have to put the phone back in the box and send it back to the manufacturer and switch back to the iPhone, it was like, oh, the screen's a little bit small, isn't it? Oh, remember how easy it was to like take a text clipping and turn it into an Evernote clipping? And, oh, wasn't it nice to be able to set up a custom like desktop screen that had really everything I needed to it? But this is nice too. It's beautiful and it's simple and it's easy to use. So really, that's all it's about. I felt as I run into a lot of people who are in that same sort of category. And I thought that I could have just made it into a little like 800 word, oh, yeah, I'm switching. I like the Galaxy S3 and I'm really happy with it right now. I thought that if I were able to talk about this in great detail, it would help a lot of people understand either why they should cast their net a little bit wider or why switching from the iPhone is probably not going to be the best decision for them. And I've gotten a lot of feedback over that article so far.
Yeah. It's like Bob Dylan going electric. Somebody said.
Oh God!
We were worried you were just quite curious, Andy.
Yeah. Well, I knew that something was up when I tweeted it was posted early this morning. I tweeted out the link at like a little after 9. I checked back like at 9:20, and it wasn't just the number of like retweets and like comments. It was 1, 2, 3. I see retweets in 5 different languages.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Oh boy. But you will in part 3 talk about the downsides of Android. So Apple fans can stay tuned.
The structure is in detail. I go over the 4 things that really made me switch to Android. The 4 features of Android that really attracted me. There's in the last part I'm talking about the stuff that people often say is the reason why they don't use Android. The reason why Android is a terrible system. And it turns out that those things are not really true. The reasons why it is actually a disadvantage. And then I talk a little bit about why Apple, I think, is getting so much flack over, well, you're not innovating enough and you're being left behind, which is, again, not true. Some of this was a little bit defensive, and it's part of the reason why I decided to take some time with this, because I knew that there were a lot of people who are just going to see the headline that, hey, I'm switching from iPhone to Android, and think I was just link baiting or just, trying to be a rabble rouser.
No, you don't do that.
There's reasons why I do things. As I've said before, I think that you should love the features that a device gives for you. You should love the way that it makes your life easier and simpler. You shouldn't love the company that makes it, because if
they don't love you.
Exactly. I love, for 5 years, I love the iPhone for the features that it delivered. And if I found myself that I was sticking with the iPhone just because I love Apple and I've been an Apple user since I was in middle school, then I'm kind of a dope.
What could, and I'm sure Johnny Ive and Tim Cook will be listening carefully to this, what could Apple do to win you back with the next iPhone?
Of course, there are rumors that there's going to be a large. One of them is that I really, really do miss having a larger screen phone, and this is, the 4.8-inch screen. It was just so hard to switch back to the smaller screen. When I've been thinking about this for a number of months. I was really waiting to see, well, what's iOS? What is Apple going to deliver with iOS 6? What's the iPhone 5 going to be like? And really, one of the main things I was hoping for is give me a properly big screen, because it's something that is just enhances my mobile experience inestimably. I mean, have you ever read an opinion online that is so completely out of whack with your own experience that for a moment you doubt your own recollection of your own feelings, because it's just, wait, is 2 plus 8 11? Maybe have I just assumed it's 10? And when you see so many people claim that, oh, well, the larger screen, it's actually just a marketing gimmick that gullible consumers are swooned by in the showroom, and doesn't actually show you more information. Yeah, it does. It really,
quite a bit more.
But it's not just that. It's I like the fact that it's so easy to move information between apps instead of having to do a cut, copy, and paste, which is how you usually have to do it on the iPhone. And there are a bunch of other things that are in the articles. But if Apple really needs to make a lot of changes, not just to the hardware, not even just to iOS, they really have to change their attitude. Again, I'm not saying their attitude isn't as bad right now. I'm just saying that they really are focused towards a consumer who really wants to take the thing out of the box, power it up, charge it up, put their phone, their contacts in it, and go.
Well, I'll give you a good example of an area that Apple, you and I might want Apple to change, but Apple will not ever change. And that is the openness of the system. So you mentioned a little bit with the sharing menu in Android, which can be extended by any app. But, of course, is limited by Apple intentionally to Twitter and Facebook because they can control it. Similarly, you mentioned that you can use different keyboards. Apple won't let you do that for good reason, because a third-party keyboard can capture keystrokes, and if it's malicious, send it back to the bad guys. And so this closed ecosystem that Apple's created, where they don't give API access to, for instance, your text messages, while Android does, means that there is some functionality missing. I use an Android plugin for Chrome called Mighty Text that lets me send and receive my texts on the phone, also on my desktop. Apple controls that tightly with messages. If you don't like the message experience, too bad, because Apple rightly, I think, says there's a potential for misbehavior if we let other people write to the text message.
There's also some technical reasons behind a lot of this. I've had Android since the G1. I most recently have a Nexus 4 now, but both these devices came from very different backgrounds. When the iPhone was created, it's unclear it was ever really meant to run third-party apps, and it wasn't. Springboard is one giant lump. It's not architected in a way that makes it easy to do things like multitasking or contracts or intents or a lot of stuff that Android was built from the ground up to support. A lot of that has been kind of added on in layers to iOS. But by the same token, Android was originally not meant to be an iPhone-like device. And that's why when I use a Nexus 4, and I think I mentioned this before, you put it in developer mode and you turn on screen redraws, I just see the scroll view being drawn 4 times because Google hasn't had time to go back and re-architect the display layers. I'm a designer by trade, and that really bothers me. The interface on Android really bothers me. But other people, the functionality on iOS really bothers them. So to Andy's point, it's what annoys you more. You'll end up going towards a platform that better suits your needs.
What's interesting is, and Andy, you always, while you were still using the phone, you always brought up that exact design thing. You said that the fit and finish on iPhone is better for both apps and the OS. What happened to you on that one? Did you just say, well, I can live with it?
Yeah, it's and I get into this in greater detail in later sections of the article, but it's not a case of Android kicking iOS's butt in category after category after category. It's more like there's a point system, and the look and feel of the apps got good enough that although it's still not as good as iOS, it's not a bad look and feel. It's not a bad interface, and the tone of the entire app market has changed. When I was I had sort of transitional period. I'm talking almost as though I'm going through gender reassignment surgery. There was a time when I was sort of there was a time in which
he's Android curious, folks. It's not necessarily a long-term switch.
I was definitely by phone. I was carrying both phones in my pocket at all times.
Big phone love.
Yeah. And I was using the Samsung as a Wi-Fi device because I had no SIM in it, and I found, and I'm like, well, I'm going to miss so many of the iOS apps, but I found that really nearly all of the apps that I really care about are multi-platform. And in the past 14 to 16 months, companies like Evernote, they're no longer content to have an iOS team and an Android team. Now they want it to look exactly the same on multiple platforms. And
I think, though, Evernote does update iOS faster than Android. The new features seem to come to iOS first. Maybe not. I might be wrong on that.
I couldn't say either way. But the point is that now the design isn't coming directly from the operating system. The design is being dictated by whoever's trying to build this and deploy it on multiple platforms. And also, I mean, it's not even to say that there are not great looking apps designed for Android. I mean, I've never really used Google Reader on my iPhone because I've never found like a Google Reader RSS app that I thought was very pretty and very readable and very, very good. And now I'm using this app when I found this app called Press, now this is really almost my RSS reader of choice on a desktop, iPad, or any other device.
Right.
So they really have elevated their game. Part of that is that they've finally made that transition. Android 4.0, Android 4.1, they really have gotten their developers in line enough to say, look, you can't just simply throw a bunch of crap onto the screen, and if it sticks and if the buttons highlight when you press them, you can't just say, okay, the user interface is done. So yeah, it's a lot of what you have to talk about is when you're talking about the differences between the two is that just because Android is not quite as reliable as iOS doesn't mean it's unreliable. Just because the apps aren't as pretty as iOS doesn't mean they're not pretty apps. And then when you say that they're certainly within close enough to the letter grade of iOS that now you can look at other things, such as, again, they're not Apple is not willing to give me a true big screen phone. Apple is not willing to give me an app switching mechanism and a data sharing mechanism that really, really works. There are lots of little things that I find more easier to use. Another thing, talk about customization. Google has no problem if a developer wants to remap the volume keys, this rocker switch that's on every single phone, to do other things. So it's often being used as a page turner device. It's often being used for really interesting functions for those situations when you really are in that viewing mode where you're just sort of sitting or standing and then just like looking at a screen and paging through information. And it makes this kind of device a lot easier to use.
Thank you, Leo. Was it a Trojan squirrel, and did you let it in?
It must have been a Trojan squirrel, and inside it was tiny little nuts. I had to check.
Show title.
I understand why the podcast app sucks, but I don't understand why iTunes sucks. So
or the
I don't
App
think it
Store
sucks. I just think it's surprisingly.
It sucks. No, Andy. Let's be honest. It sucks.
No, I don't think it sucks. I think that I will start after defending it by saying it doesn't suck. Oh my God, what wonderful praise that is! Carve that in gold above the lentil apple. I have to vent a little bit at a problem that I was so sure this was a software bug with the first release that I thought because I'm trying to sync my. I'm going to mention this because I think that a lot of people will suddenly have an aha moment. Oh my God, here's how I fix this problem. I try to sync TV shows that I've purchased onto my iPad. It will not, when I get to that page in the sync feature of iTunes, it will only show me like the first screenful of shows that I've purchased. So if I want to sync 30 Rock, I can't do it because I try to scroll down that list and will rubber band.
You're syncing it wrong.
No. Well, see, I kind of am, because I assume that just because this scrolling list of TV shows responds to like a scroll input, that okay, I guess it just doesn't think that there's more underneath that. Here's what was actually happening. I have to move the mouse outside of that little scroll view, but still inside the window, because the entire rest of that scroll list is in like the populated unseen area of that window. So if I scroll the window content, I can see the rest of my TV shows. I simply can't scroll the list that exhibits scrolling behavior. And this is why I was not syncing any of my TV shows for about a month.
Well, Andy, this is version 11.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
you're saying this doesn't suck?
I don't have any.
I'm saying it's streamlined. It's useful for what most people use it for. I think that they took a real step backward for it, because this is a recurring theme that I tend to harp on, that there are two kinds of ways to make something easy. One is the sort of easy features that means you can learn this in one day. You got it in one day. But then there are the sort of features where after you're no longer a newbie, once you're using it at month 2, month 3, year 1, year 1.5, year 2, that makes it continually easier to use. I think that iTunes is a step forward in the first type of ease of use, but definitely a step backward in the second. I miss the fact that I can't. Sometimes you're working on a playlist, but you want to have that window open behind you. So as you sort of make your way through things, you can just simply random grab things and toss them in. iTunes 11 is optimized towards maybe having 3, maybe 4, and only occasionally really manipulating them. And I could go on for an hour on things I don't like about the way it works. I don't think it sucks, but I think that they are. It's such a bold statement about becoming a consumer-oriented company as opposed to a more broad appeal. Everybody who likes machines that go Bing. Sort of company.
It's 90-90. What will 90% of the people need 90% of the time?
Yeah. Would you agree the podcast app on iOS sucks?
It sucks.
Okay, thank you.
It sucks. See, it's worse. It's absolutely useless. It does not do the job it was supposed to do. Not only that, but it also prevents you from using an alternative. What I hated the most about it was that if I have the podcast app on this iPhone, I don't even have the option of saying, well, what if I have I have a playlist called Greatest Podcast Episodes Ever. So when WTF did that wonderful interview with Mel Brooks, that goes into a special playlist that says a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that Valkyrie interview on Jeff Goldberg's excuse me, another podcast. But the fact that they were podcasts means that I'm not allowed to listen to them within an iTunes playlist. They have to be accessed through the podcast app.
I think there's a reason for this. Access them. I think actually Apple is rejecting podcasts like they would reject a bad organ.
Oh, absolutely.
They're pushing them out. And this was always my great fear. You know, when Apple started including podcasts on iTunes, it was a great day for us and all other podcasters. It really improved our profile, but it always made me nervous because we were really dependent on Apple. And at this point, I think it's clear that Apple has decided. You know, they lost a big patent lawsuit last year on this subject. I think Apple has decided, and they can't do it overtly because they know they get the wrath of a lot of listeners. But they don't want podcasts to be part of iTunes. They want to push it out. They want to move it over to the side, and they want you to ultimately give up on the podcast app and use Downcast or some third-party app, and then eventually they'll kill it, and then they can say, hey, we don't do podcasts.
I'm not sure it's that. I'm not sure it's that. One of the problems Apple is facing with the iOS device is that they're breaking iTunes up into many constituent parts, and they have an iTunes U app instead of having all the iTunes U stuff in the iTunes app.
Why do that?
Yeah, well, the iOS ecosystem seems to favor single-purpose applications. Right. It's much easier. iTunes is a monstrosity, and part of that on the desktop is because they have to port the whole thing to Windows. So everything that they could possibly want to do with an iPhone or music is one gigantic monstrosity. But on iOS, it behooves them to have all these different apps because then they can build specific interfaces, especially on the more constrained iPhone screen, for those things. That makes
sense, actually. Yeah.
And my understanding is that the people who made the podcast app, Apple has like the remote app. The remote app did not get updated for a long time because that engineer was taken off and given another job. Yeah, and he was brought back to it. And the disadvantage of not being part of the music app, which has more consistent engineers behind it, is I think there were two guys, an engineer and a designer, who put it out, and they seemed really proud of it. And other people at Apple seemed really proud of it when it shipped. But then they had bugs, and they tried to fix the bugs, and now they're really busy trying to get iOS 7 out. And it's just as much as Apple has nearly infinite resources, billions and billions of dollars, they don't have infinite engineers. They are starved for good engineers.
That's the question. That's the real question.
Yeah.
There aren't good people out there.
Yeah, everyone's starved for. I mean,
well, if you're in college right now, become a developer, because there's a desperate need for not just average grunt developers. There's a desperate need for brilliant.
Which take after you get out of college often takes 10 years of development. I mean, when we think of great programmers,
here's why I think Apple is actually actively trying to kill podcasting. Because they lost that lawsuit and they were forced to pay $8 million, they now also license it. Podcasting costs them money. And no one knows how much, but day in, day out, podcasting costs them money. The ability to subscribe to a podcast on iTunes costs them money. And I just think that they're thinking, well, we don't make any money on this. We can't charge for podcasts. It's costing us money. Who needs it? But now they don't want to do it overtly. But I think
my sister loves the new podcast app. She subscribes to 1 or 2 television podcasts at a time. When they stop having the television series, she gets rid of them. And that podcast app is perfect for someone who doesn't use podcasts the way that we do. It doesn't have a list like Andy's, that doesn't want to sync a ton of stuff. If you have 4 or 5 podcasts you happen to like, if you want to use the stations button to find a couple things that are interesting, it's a fine app for you. And Apple just, once again, is not showing interest in the power user segment.
By the way, Google does a bad job with podcasts, too. Their Google Listen is awful.
Well,
it's gone.
Exactly. That's why I disagree with you. Google realized that their app, they don't need to have a Google Listen app because there are wonderful third-party apps out there that do the job just fine. Rather than coming out with a half-butted version of it to sort of encourage people not to use it, they simply said, okay, we're done. We're not going to update this anymore.
Smart.
If Apple really had no interest in it anymore in podcasts, then they would simply not have released it or said, okay, we're never going to update this.
Well, I think that's the next step. Just kill it. I mean, that thing is such a.
I think that my guess is that when a big company releases a piece of software that's this bad, and it is awful, it absolutely sucks. The story that I'm usually told by current and former team members 2 or 3 years later, which is that on the whiteboard, this was a huge 4-star, well-funded project. At some point, as they were working on this, it became a 0 priority for the company, and they just simply were forced to limp this across the finish line in as dignified a fashion as they possibly could. So I don't think it's a matter of sabotage. I think that it's an indication of a lack of will on Apple to have a really good podcasting app baked right in.
If we look at it was supposed to come out at WWDC along with all the iOS 6 stuff. I believe it was supposed to be shown off on stage, and it was late, so it got kind of released in between, which was really odd. It wasn't at the WWDC, and it didn't wait until the iPhone event. And Apple, and Guy English wrote a great article about this, I think a year ago, about Apple and retention, where people and engineers are their biggest problem now, because all the early iPhone engineers have had their stock options vest. All the second generation, the App Store people, all of them. If you look, and I think Gruber picked this up, Dan Frommer wrote about it, over the last few weeks, the amount of people, good iOS engineers leaving Apple has gone up. So if they're struggling to get iOS 7 out, if they have a constrained amount of engineers, they are not, exactly what Andy said, they are not wasting a lot of them on the podcast.
And this is why you want to be a brilliant programmer, because you'll vest, you'll make millions of dollars, you can retire.
Well, or not only retire, but you're going to make more money building your own apps because you know it inside and out.
And do a startup.
Do your own thing. Build your. They have their own ideas that no one's listening to.
Great developers are the gold standard.
We're also overlooking the obvious here. The reason why there isn't enough people to work on a podcast app is because those 100 engineers they put on the Watch project. It must be bigger than we even imagined.
Yeah. Did they announce anything else while I was gone? I know we have a new phone, and I want to thank, by the way, Josh Windish on my staff and his wife Vanessa, who works at the Apple Store, who probably broke rules to squirrel aside.
No, I'm sure it was all above board.
I pathed him.
I'm sure nobody did anything that would get them censured or fired from their job, Leo.
Absolutely
nothing untoward.
No. She waited in line for me.
There you go.
This is I'm unboxing it right now. This is a 5S, the gold. And here I learned something interesting today. All of you manly men have gold iPhones.
Absolutely.
What is the story with that?
Well, it's Brian Klug is the only acceptable color.
Well, we know it's different, right? I actually wanted gold, and it is kind of pretty, isn't it?
It's more of a it really is a very subtle, understated. It isn't a hey, look how much money I have. So much money, my phone is made out of gold. So it's a it's a very classy sort of gold.
Yeah, it's not a super shiny. It's like, I mean, just like the silver one, this is the gold colored version of that. It's that textured kind of.
Yeah, it's a light gold. It's not like a warm, big, rich gold. It's just pretty.
Yeah,
it totally distracts from the fact that it's still a rounded rectangle, Leo. Totally distracts.
The gold ring around the home button puts it over the top.
And then this is, of course, the new
Touch ID.
Is that what they call it?
Touch ID sensor.
So, of course, I was here when the announcements were made. I was here for that event. So what I didn't know is how well this Touch ID worked. We've had it for a while now. What do you think? Is the fingerprint sensor good?
Works like a charm for me.
It works really well, but you really have to do a good job, I think, when you set it up for the first time, because I think I registered like my primary thumb kind of quickly in my excitement to get it to work, and after like 2 weeks later of saying try again, I finally like wiped all my fingerprints, not off my hand off the device, and basically did a little bit more deliberately. Well, here's where I'm going to be hitting. Here's how I'm typically going to be touching this button.
Now I'm doing something. Do you guys do this? I'm waiting till it's English. Do you guys do that? Because once it's English, then I can swipe it. I'm afraid if I swipe it when it's Korean,
you'll set the language.
It's just going to stay that way. Do you guys do that, or is that just me?
That's just you.
I found the first Touch ID set up awkward, Leo. Like, I wasn't used to it. I didn't know what I was quite doing. It would vibrate. I'd pull my finger off too fast. I'd put it back too slow. It took me a while. The second and third time were far better than the first.
Yeah, I agree. It was. It tries to explain what you need to do, but you've got to. You know, I was like tap 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 tap. No, that's not how you do it. You got to be patient, and it reads it once, and then it actually tells you, okay, now shift your position, and so that you can get the other, the corners of your print, so that if you're in any kind of weird angle, it's smart. I like how they did it. It's very friendly, and it works pretty well. Yeah.
It's also nice enough to tell you that when you're trying to register your fingerprint, if you're not giving it what it needs, it will actually say hold it longer now. Okay, hold it again. So
it's the same passive disappointment as original GPS systems would give you.
Is it going to do that at some point now?
You have to set it up so when you get through everything, it'll ask you to, if you want to turn on your passcode, and then you can have it also remember a thumbprint at that point. Right. It's tied to the passcode. You have to have a passcode as well. So you've got another method of authentication.
That 4-digit passcode.
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be a 4-digit passcode. In fact, when I turned on Touch ID, I went from a 4-digit passcode up to a much more complicated password because I don't need to enter it very often. So I think it's actually more secure in that way because my alternate password is much better than the old 4-digit PIN code that I used to use.
Pardon me for covering old material, because I know you probably talked about this.
It's new to you.
It's new to me, but I'm the only one it's new to.
And it's not like it's like the entire world seems to think that everybody buys a brand new iPhone the first week of release, and then it ceases to be of interest to anybody.
Yeah, we're done. What's next? What's new?
We're only arriving in October, Leo. This is new for everybody.
Well, and that was why I was so pleased that Josh put one aside for me, because I did try to order it, and it said sometime in October, and I thought, well, God, I don't know if I want to be that out of the loop. Faster, yes. Noticeably
super
so.
Faster.
Super faster.
Best device for iOS 7, I think, so far.
Well, and I noticed that the iOS 7 camera is much different. I was able to get iOS 7 on my iPad Mini, which I took with me, and on my iPhone, my old iPhone 5. The camera is so much different, but I think it really is made. It's made for this camera, right?
Yeah, I think the processor has a lot to do with it. The DSP, the signal processor in the chip that's in the 5S, they're using that a lot. There's a lot of back-end processing happening in terms of what they're focusing on and low light, and it's doing a lot of really intelligent stuff. Plus the new flash. So the processor is not
the new flash. There's
part
flash
of the story
on here finally. No, flash.
There's two flashes now.
The double
LED,
flash.
yes.
Yeah. All right, so it's now asking me to set up Touch ID. So I'll do that, right?
Yeah.
Scan the finger or thumb you normally use on the home button. I'm a lefty, so I just put it there. Okay. Lift and rest your finger repeatedly. And as I do that, it's filling in the little whorls and loops. Now, somebody told me it's only taking 9 points of similarity, which gives it more reliability. It then hashes those. It doesn't store an image. Actually, it was my friend Chamala, who's a Turkish podcaster, who's also a security expert and has used fingerprint readers for a long time. He said, for that reason, it's more reliable.
Right.
But the potential for a collision is higher.
Right.
1 in 50,000.
So big deal, right? Big deal. Yeah. I mean, what's the chance that that other 50 guy in the 50,000 is a crook?
That's basically the same chances that you'll have an evil doppelganger anyway.
Right.
You're finding your fingerprint twin.
So I've lifted and rested my finger on the home button repeatedly.
And now
adjust my grip.
Change your grip.
What the hell does that mean?
Just hold the phone a little differently because chances are
should I use a different finger?
No, same finger.
No, same
so
finger.
I'm now stuck with this finger forever.
Well, no, because it'll remember.
Oh, because it's a different angle.
Yeah, that's it. Because you don't always use the exact same angle. So it wants.
Can I do my right finger? I've now committed to my left.
It remembers
finger.
up to 5. So this will just be your first one.
Shirley Bassey's left finger was the one that didn't make it as a hit. Touch ID is ready. Your print can be used. Continue. Now I have to do a passcode, which I will do. Don't look.
And it's very, very smart.
Because 1, 2, 3, 4. Nobody would guess that, I don't think.
We won't tell.
I like the way that they've really defined the fingerprint as a secondary sort of thing. Really, the passcode is still your primary. And if you have not used your fingerprint in a while, or if you've restarted the phone or a couple other situations, it will ask for your passcode before it will let you use the fingerprint again.
So that passcode is not just a backup, a fallback. It's really part of
your primary.
Yeah, I think that's
good.
If
you reboot, 48 hours have passed since you last used it, or you fail 5 times, it'll ask you for your passcode again.
So that's it. Now, if I lock this phone, now the next time I do this to unlock it, I just slide it.
Well, that's to put in the passcode, or you can just
do this. Right. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Hey, Leo, if you lock it again and then put down Notification Center.
If I do that again, and now I do the...
now pull down Notification Center first.
Yeah.
Now you can watch the icons fly in from underneath Notification Center, like all the cool kids.
Watch the icons...
Put your thumb on it.
Put your thumb back on it.
Woo!
Oh, I saw them kind of underneath in the translucency.
Yeah.
I have to say, of all the things on iOS 7, I'm not thrilled about is there's a lot of flying in of icons.
Yeah, and that's why I think that a lot of people who are thrown off by iOS 7, if you try it on the 5S, that's the first machine I think that's designed so that where the animation is so smooth and so natural that it seems to make sense. Right. On my iPads and on my earlier generation iPhones. Right. It's not like it's terrible, but there's enough of a hesitation, there's enough of a stutter that I'm noticing things moving in as opposed to
it's more annoying. Okay, you're right. It is not so annoying on this.
Yeah, it turns out there's an uncanny valley for these kind of animations.
Isn't that funny?
And this one can manage it.
Here's the other thing I'm not crazy about. I'd like to get your take. Yeah. I'm not crazy about the folders.
Stays open. I hate it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a mistake. They need to fix it. Okay. This idea that it's like they've forgotten that when the only thing the folders are good for are for launching apps from. Yeah. And it's not as though, well, I of course I want to see all the other driving games that are in my folder when I quit out of that one. It's just a terrible
the home
idea.
button should be sacrosanct. The home button should take me back to the home screen.
Yes.
And now, whether you're in a folder or a newsstand, that's the one that gets me. Is I'm reading an app in newsstand and I press the button to go back to switch to another app, and it shows me newsstand.
Don't want that.
And then I have to press it again to go back out. And that's not how the home button should work.
That.
It's not.
So just to explain so people see what we're talking about for those of you watching. So I opened the extras folder and I opened the calculator. Now home should and has always in the past brought us home. Instead, it brings us back to the folder. Yeah. I'm also not crazy about the folder layout. I feel like it's a kind of waste of space. Although I learned, which is kind of cool, that you can have multiple pages in a folder.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting idea, right? That could be useful. But I'm not crazy about the waste of space there. I feel like it could be a little, but that's a minor.
Sure. This is such a re-thing for Apple that there are lots of things that are weird about it that one would hope they will be fixing in future updates. But it's very different. And
you know what I really like? I really like the multitasking. This is a really nice way to handle that.
It's very WebOS, right?
Oh, have we seen this before? Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I like the icons. I think the icons help a lot with the thumbnail.
Yeah.
And the ability to swipe these off. Or another thing I just learned, multi-swipe them off.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole hold down until it starts to jiggle, and then there's a little tiny X. I mean, that's such an unfriendly behavior.
This is better.
This is much more natural.
It's prejudiced against the idea that you would ever force quit an app. Whereas people just seem to think, are more naturally proposed to think that, hey, I'm done with this. I want this gone now. But the other cool thing is I didn't notice until I was using it for a day or two is that those previews are actually live. So if you're playing a video, you will actually see the video continue to play as you cycle through that way.
I do think the camera is superlative. And as much as I've used the other cameras, the Moto X had an update. That's what I took on my trip. There's nothing like the iPhone 5, and the 5S is even better.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's they made so many steps forward. There's only one step backward. I think the reason why I have this up here is that the burst mode is more useful and more significant on the iPhone than it is on any other camera phone, because this will simply shoot 2 frames per second at the exact same quality it shoots every other picture. And I actually shot a video of how long can you hold down that button. So it got 200. And when I got back home, I was actually timing it out. It shot 230 something shots at 10 frames per second, and then it slowed down to about 7 or 8, and it kept on that until about 500, at which point I got bored and stopped. So that's but I'm sorry, what I'm getting at is that every time you're shooting an uncooperative subject, or you're chasing your kid around and the kid is not going to stop and please stand still, please do this, or you got a group shot of 4 or 5 people and not everybody has their eyes open at the same time. This idea of like holding the phone up and clicking one picture, that's done on the 5S. You will almost always want to shoot a burst of 10 or 12 because one of these 10 shots is going to be perfect. This one is I was shooting a burst of the squirrel in the tree. And of 30 shots, there happened to be 2 in which the pose was kind of okay, and the subject was sharp, because this was like just a half an hour before sunset. But if you get one shot at it, you're probably going to miss it. But if you take a burst of 10 or 20, you're probably going to find at least one frame that's going to be pretty good. There's still one problem that I found with it. I don't know why, but it loves low ISOs. It will do anything. It will sell its first child on eBay to take a picture with a low ISO.
Well, it's because it's less grainy. You want it to do that, right?
Yeah. It's a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more grainy at a higher ISO. But the problem is that it's saying, well, you're inside a library in a sort of a dimly lit reading hall. I can shoot at 64 ISO, can't I? No, I'm going to shoot a 64 ISO. No, I'm going to shoot a 64 ISO, and the shutter speed is going to be 1/15 of a second. So hold it real steady. Yeah. Well, I can't hold it that steady. So that's why there are a lot of shots in which, if not for the fact that it was going for 64 or 100 ISO and a long exposure of like 1/30th or 1/15th, it would have taken a better picture than most of the other phones.
Is there no way to overrule that?
None that I know of. The only trick that I've kind of found that kind of works is that I haven't certified this yet, but I noticed that when I use the flash, it tends to go for a shorter shutter speed. But there's no way to force it to go for a shorter speed.
Yeah, sometimes if you tap and hold on a really dark area, you force it to adjust to the darkness, and it will actually crank the ISO. Is that down or up? Up. So up. But it's finicky. It definitely is finicky.
Yeah.
Now I can't
that's the one thing I wish they'd fix.
I'm holding it wrong. Oh, there. Okay. It took 4 tries.
We have a new. We're holding it wrong.
Get used to it.
Touching it wrong.
Yeah. But I want to program maybe this finger too, in case, right? My index finger.
Up to 5. I've got 4 of them.
2 thumbs and an index finger.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you'll discover is all the different ways you happen to pick up your phone. In
I just discovered that. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Right. So I did my left thumb first, and then I used it for a little while, and I went, also right index finger, and then I put it down on my kitchen counter and realized I was waking it up with my right thumb, and it turns out I have 4 really common different ways based on where the phone is that I pick up the phone. I had no idea.
So I can add it says fingerprint 1, and I can now add fingerprint 2.
Now, okay. One of the nice things about that screen is if you touch your thumb to it, it'll highlight.
It says, that's fingerprint 1.
So you can actually see by touch which one is which. Yeah.
Let me do that again. That's cool. Yeah, that's finger 1.
Yeah.
You know what finger 2 is? No, I'm not gonna.
But there's no.
People know me a little too well, don't they?
They know what finger 2 is.
They know what finger 2 is. So now I'm going to do my index finger, because I want to be able to do that as well. I noticed when I want to take a picture, that's kind of how I hold my phone up. All right. So I have noticed that in general the feeling is that people are very happy. Is any negatives? Well, there was the security issue. So let's talk about that. In fact, Renee Ritchie, was it you that wrote that article at iMore?
Yes. Yep.
I saw the article in which you said the media got it wrong and made it a security problem when it wasn't one in fact at all. Now I avoided that. I've already updated between the time I left. There have been 3 versions of iOS 7. 702. Alex Lindsay always said, don't use the first version of any Apple OS. Don't use the second version. Use the third that fixes the problems that the second version added when it fixed the problems for the first version. By the third, by 7.02, it's going to be good. So now's the time.
It wasn't so much the updates. It was just iPhone 5S has these new security features, and it has lots of them, like activation lock and like Touch ID and trusted machine. But it also has a ton of new convenience features like Control Center. And you have to choose as a responsible adult user whether you want a really convenient iPhone, a really secure iPhone, or some middle ground. And the problem with the reporting is that they were phrasing it in such a way that I was getting continual letters from people like, oh, Touch ID doesn't work, I'm turning it off, I'm not gonna have a passcode anymore, or this is a security flaw. And they were making choices that degraded their security due to misinformation that was being presented about it. And like, for example, you can use Control Center to put your iPhone in airplane mode from the lock screen, and people were afraid that thieves would steal their iPhones, put it in airplane mode, and they couldn't track it. You can disable that very easily in the settings. You can turn Siri off so that Siri only works from the lock screen with Touch ID enabled. There's all these different settings you can use, but
that's always been a problem. Siri was always accessible from the lock screen unless you disabled it. That's not new.
And now if you disable it, it's only accessible from the lock screen with Touch ID, which I think is a much better choice. And there were several things like Touch ID can be foiled. Well, yes, if you have a CSI level person who goes to the trouble of duplicating your fingerprint in a multi-step, non-trivial process, and then happens to get physical access to your phone within the 48-hour window of you last using it with a finger. But it wasn't reported that way. It was just reported as, Apple is doomed, this stuff doesn't work, and that caused a lot of problems.
How? Okay, so you would certainly recommend 702, especially if you're Greek, because apparently you couldn't. The Greek language didn't work properly, and I was in Greece. Who knew? By the way, a little observation as I'm going around, and I think this is going to be very interesting to see what happens. Until we got to Turkey, where a lot of people had iPhones, almost everybody had Nokia phones. I can't tell you how many times I heard diddle-doo, diddle-doo, diddle-doo. Not only did they have Nokia phones, they hadn't updated their ringtone. It's like everybody. And of course, it's because they're less expensive. They're cheap kind of candy bar phones. And I really wonder with Microsoft buying Nokia, what's going to happen in that world? And that may be a huge opportunity for Apple. I think that's why analysts are saying, do a cheap phone, Apple. And that I think maybe it's even more urgent because Nokia is basically, I think, going to kill that market. Right? So anyway, just an observation from being somewhere besides the U.S.
I just think that we don't pay enough attention to the I don't care segment of the market. The people for whom a phone is just a practical device that they have absolutely no emotional connection to. And so
in Turkey, a lot of people had iPhones. It was very interesting.
I will note that my mother, who's had a candy bar phone for her entire life, asked me today what I was doing with my iPhone 5C when I finished reviewing it.
There's a market.
It is Warhol for her. It is the pop art iPhone.
Oh, that's interesting. It is, isn't it? All right, so battery life. Last question. Battery life.
I find it that it's as good as the iPhone 5. However,
that's disappointing.
You're not used to the fact that iOS 7 iOS 7 has different sets of defaults than iOS 5. Than iOS 6 did. So I was getting not as good battery life until I went in and changed all the Wi-Fi settings back to the way that I had them before. All the other notification things set back to the way I had before. So I think that it's as good as the iPhone 5 running iOS 6.
That's good enough.
Apple seems to be optimizing for the idea that you leave the house in the morning, you work and use the phone a little bit while you're out, and then you come home at night and plug it back in. And
not when you go to bed, but before you. In the evening,
and that works for me. I have almost never had it drop off before I got home at the end of the day. But that's what they're I
want 18 hours.
This is what Apple doesn't want to give you a thick phone with a big battery. I mean
you mean like this?
Yeah, they want to optimize for
such a thick phone with such a big battery.
Yeah, I know. It's sickening to even look at it.
It's so thick. So Moto X absolutely I get all day. I mean, until I go to bed that night.
Yeah, well, I usually do too. I think there are some quirks in iOS 7 too, where apps can run in the background now, truly run in the background. And occasionally I will get a misbehaving app, and that will lead to trouble.
That'll kill you. But that happens everywhere.
But Apple obviously is going to solve for what it thinks is the right amount of battery, and no more, because they don't want to make it any bigger or any heavier.
Okay, so good enough, not great. Yeah, so, wait a minute. Somebody's connecting me with a specialist. I didn't click anything, but Gentina Maria wants to talk.
Let's start chatting and talking to.
Hey, Gentina Maria.
You got to say start chat.
I don't know. Really?
Say hi. How's it going? We're on MacBreak.
Don't tell her we're on. I have to tell her we're on MacBreak. Hey, when will the new Mac Pro ship? How can I assist you? When will the new Mac Pro ship? Let's see what Gentina Maria says. This is probably an invasion of privacy, except she's not a real
audio
person, right?
Maybe. Maybe
she is.
Probably not her last name, though.
Oh, when you go to 703, you get the hola, hello, auf Wiedersehen, bonjour thing. I got to start all over?
Jumbo.
What's up with that?
That's
that
not
was really
nice.
Yeah, right before the show, and I don't know my iCloud ID. So you get to the point where you have to put your iCloud ID in. I can't get to one.
This is a point update. They shouldn't be a complete.
Anytime they change iCloud, they make you sign back into it. So this added the iCloud keychain stuff. So you've got to sign back into iCloud.
And you got to sign back into your Wi-Fi network. I mean, it's weird.
Update
with the over-the-air updates now.
Choose a Wi-Fi network.
Yeah,
doomed.
You got to put in your password.
I got to choose the FBI surveillance fan again. I really do want to. Oh, see, it knows it though, so I'm just going to choose it. Oops, cancel. It has a check mark. Oh no, it does want the password. Why is it? So it's because of the iCloud update?
Yeah.
Because it didn't do it for 702, did it?
No. And it'll only ask your password if it's not restoring an encrypted backup, which unfortunately iCloud ones aren't yet.
Wait a minute, it's not a question mark, it's an exclamation mark. Incorrect. Oh, God. What did she say? I will be more than happy to answer your questions about shipping. Cool. When will it ship? This is a bot. Otherwise, it wouldn't say that, right? A human wouldn't say that. A human would say, oh, yeah, well, I can't tell you, or something. It wouldn't say, I'll be more than happy to answer that question.
It'll say December. Didn't you watch the keynote?
I think I'm talking with a bot.
Or someone following a very specific instruction.
Do you think she's pasting it in?
It's got a flow chart.
Yeah, she's searching through her internal.
I don't know. Why did he ask me that?
Is this store help or Mac help?
I don't even know how I got here. It's apple.com.
Or is it?
It just happened.
They're fishing for Leo's.
I did buy the MacBook Pro with Retina 15-inch.
You start asking her non sequiturs like, what is the temperature in Zimbabwe?
What is it like where you are?
Yeah, what's the color of the sky in your world?
She's really thinking. She's calling for a manager right now. Oh, ... I'm checking the info here in our Apple online store. Well, I could do that.
You should tell her that.
Please allow me just a few more moments.
No, you should respond. I found it. It's December.
Oh yeah. I just found it. Never mind. I'm feeling terrible now. I would be terrible on one of those prank shows, you know. I'd feel guilty. ...
We totally buried the lead, Leo. Not only is there no Touch ID on the iPads, there's no gold option.
Yeah, I'm shocked there's no gold.
Oh, are you really? did you really think that Apple's going to have someone hold up like this big, huge tablet of
It's opulent, but I like opulence.
Opulence.
The only person who would actually be using one of these big gold iPads is the sort of person who wants to walk around with pointy shoes with tassels hanging off the phone.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the only thing about that is that we made a lot of fun of the gold iPhone on this show. And it is the only one. It is the only one I've seen in the wild. Like literally, the only iPhone 5S that I've seen in the wild is the champagne one.
It's the only acceptable option, Alex.
I understand that you have one, Leo, and I don't have one yet. I've been busy.
Opulence. I has it.
Oh, you okay? There you go.
It's okay, not that gold. That's one of the reasons. It's just not that gold. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful.
It's precious to you,
It's opulent.
Now you just need one of those little dinosaurs.
They're precious. And I do like the fingerprint reader. I'm a little... Okay, now, here we go. Set up iCloud Keychain. iCloud Keychain, this is new. Keeps the passwords and credit cards information you save up to date on the devices you approve. Information is encrypted and cannot be read by Apple. So let's press the setup. Your security code could be used to set up the keychain on a new device. Use passcode. So now it wants my phone number. I'm not sure why.
It should have that. It's your phone.
It's the same phone I'm using. Thank you. Enter a phone number. Oh, it's going to send me a text message. Now it's saying, welcome to iPhone. Get started. Well, that was a very odd experience. I'm not sure. Maybe it's going to send me a text message later.
It's thinking about it.
Working. I do wish they'd had the Touch ID. Why do we think they didn't do Touch ID in the new iPads?
I think they want to figure it out. Like
You're
why?
right, it's too early. It's only been a couple of weeks.
Let the 5S do its thing and the next version has it really. They'll knock. Why have a whole bunch of people have bugs rather than just the folks with the 5S?
Yeah.
Also, don't they want to keep that component for
the Pro
for the huge something? You sure? They sell so many more iPhones than they do iPads, and if they want to have a bottleneck, don't they want to make sure that they're not causing the bottleneck? They're not cutting their own throats there
because of the iPad.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of too. Is if they just can't make enough sensors.
I'm sure they'd like to. As Sarah Lane pointed out, once you use the iPhone 5S and you get used to it, you really don't want to type in your ID. It's just a pain. It's more of a pain in a butt. Oh, hey, Mavericks. To set up Mavericks, click continue.
You're so adventurous.
Oh, this is so exciting. I've got 2 updates in one day. I'm feeling very updated. Did you read that? I forgot to read it.
It's like Christmas and your birthday all wrapped together, Leo.
Are we recommending that people do this, what I'm doing now, which is installing in place?
Maybe not while they're on a show, but...
Oh, come on.
It's just never stopped Leo before.
Never stopped me before. Preparing to install, your computer will restart automatically in 8 seconds.
Check what the chat person said.
I forgot the chat person.
The chat person.
Oh, no. Oh,
what'd she say?
Are you still there? Not till December. Great, thanks. Gotta go. Gotta go.
Upgrading.
Oh, I am upgrading
to Mavericks.
To Mavericks. Bye, Jantina Maria.
For you now.
Okay, now Mavericks wants me. Click restart. Okay. Close other applications. Yes, that's fine. Bye, chat room. Wow, is this multitasking or what?
Who's the first person who's going to create like a TMZ.com type
for Apple
website that just says
that's a great idea.
Go for it.
I think we have several.
I'm not sure if I would pay any money for the first Phil Schiller upskirt shot. That's all I'm saying. If he wants to get out of a limo, I'm not looking. That's all I'm saying.
There's proof. I've known it all along. Mike Elgin, writing for the Cult of Mac, says, yes, Apple does maintain a press blacklist, people in the media who are shunned and ignored for disloyalty.
Leo.
Blacklisted reporters, editorialists, and media personalities are denied access to information, products, and events. And once you're on the list, says Mike, it's almost impossible to get off. He says he's been on it for more than a decade. I've only been on it for 3 years, so that's not bad. I don't know that I'm on the list, but
that's what I was wondering. Reading that is, how does Mike know he's on that list, and how does he know there is a list?
We got to ask him. I mean, he wrote the article. That makes it.
Oh, well, he wrote the article.
He wrote the book.
I got
it's self-fulfilling.
But
we've heard lots of
right there using a Windows phone, and I think Andy still has access, right?
I mean, I don't know. I read the whole article. I mean, I really think that that's being blown out of proportion. I'm sure that every company, whenever they have a new product or a new thing that they want to get coverage on, they have an idea inside their heads of who they absolutely want to work with. I'm sure there's one or two that, and this is true for every single company, of who they maybe are not inclined to work with. Again, I think mostly it comes down to easy to track metrics like, what is this person's audience? Is it a localized audience? Is it an international audience? What kind of coverage have they written in the past? Is this person a bozo? Does this person absolutely not get us? And on the best day of our lives, the best thing we ever make, will they get anything that we do? I just don't think that. I think that I don't think that any company feels as though they can control an individual writer by controlling access to the company. I think the one thing that you can do above everything else is to simply be a professional. And last year, I wrote a couple of things about Apple that I'm sure they weren't very happy with. My relationship with the people I know at Apple remained exactly the same. As usual, at times I'm invited to stuff, and at times I'm not invited to stuff. At times I get stuff early, sometimes I don't. if I let that affect in any way, shape, or form how I do my job, I wouldn't be doing my job. So that's why I think that's why I think that
thought. You know, they're well thought out and fact based, and I think that stands on its own.
Thank you. I mean, that's really the point. I mean, if you're a professional, you'll get the job done no matter what help you get or what help you don't get. And I just don't think that it's in any way productive to try to work out that, oh, well, there's a blacklist and I'm on it in the larger, that and any one individual think, oh, well, I'm on the blacklist, that's why I'm not getting my emails responded to, or someone else saying, well, geez, I don't know why I'm not getting my emails responded to. I write nothing but good things about Apple. Again, it's the thing is, until any company decides to say, here's the list of everybody that we like and everybody that we don't like, all the reasons why we are going to help some people and why we're not going to help some other people, all you're doing is engaging in conjecture. And that's just absolutely pointless.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of PR people feel the same way about us. I mean, I get hundreds, if not thousands, of PR emails a week, and I don't have the opportunity to answer half of them.
I don't
and
answer
I'm sure
any
they
of them.
think there's a list. Yeah, I'm sure they think that there's.
They're all on my list.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I agree with Andy. I don't. Whether there's a blacklist or not, and Mike doesn't effectively prove that there is a blacklist, although I would imagine there is. It shouldn't affect anybody's willingness to do their job, pro or con. Yeah. And it certainly doesn't affect mine. And whether you have, his point is well taken that, for instance, he presumes, doesn't prove, that when the New York Times ran those stories, arguably hit pieces on Apple about the factories, Apple gave a big scoop to the Wall Street Journal very shortly after and gave him Tim Cook.
And I have to admit that if I was running a company and someone, I would absolutely do the same thing.
Nothing to stop him from doing that. But if you, for instance, if you give product review loaners to people who you know will be positive,
well, why
and you
wouldn't
avoid people.
Yeah, I mean,
of course you could.
As a company,
of course you could and can, but the point of view of the public should be then suspicious of coverage of that company. For instance, and we'll take it out of the tech realm. It's very well known that beltway journalism has its risks because your sources are the members of Congress that you're covering, and they can ice you, giving you no access, making it very difficult to do your job as a reporter inside Washington's beltway. So it's a very careful balancing act as a reporter that you have to do. And I'll give you another example of a known blacklist, which is John C. Dvorak. There was maintained at Microsoft for many years an enemies list, just like a Nixonian enemies list. And John happened to walk by the office and see it. And he saw his name on it. And it said enemies.
He was probably really happy about
while he was in the building.
I loved it.
He was in the building. So, and it never really hurt him in terms of his ability to do his job.
Coke still got review units. He's still got his devices. And
if you're powerful enough, you will get review units.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that here's. I mean, I was worked in PR for Sony Music a long time ago, and my job was to get press, for bands, for Living Colour or Indigo Girls or whatever.
And you're not going to give access to people who don't.
Well, I mean, the thing is so we would, shower on the guys. I took, my job was to take guys out drinking, and to take, make sure that they got to see the bands and make sure they got backstage and make sure, they did all those things. They didn't put my guys in hot rotation. And, I'd put up with that for a couple times. Then after that, they're not getting backstage and they're not getting, pre-releases. They're not getting giveaways and not getting, I'm not going to, I have a whole bunch of people I got to take care of and I'm not going to take care of the ones that are paying.
It's no accident, for instance, that Gizmodo has never been in an Apple event after they bought that stolen iPhone. That's no secret.
Or that Leo's not been in an event after.
I don't know. I truthfully, I have no idea whether I'm on a list or not, and it doesn't really matter to me. I probably wouldn't.
You just like joking about it.
But speaking
Leo.
to Apple,
I like to joke about it.
But speaking to Apple, the only way that you can prove that there is no blacklist is for Leo to be at the next Apple event.
Well, there was a time when I was invited to every event, and they sent me little Christmas packages, which I felt ethically very challenged by, wrapped with ribbon and all the new iPods in it. There was a time when I was on somebody's good side.
Right.
But I stopped taking loaners a long time ago, for the most part, buy everything I need, and I can afford to do that.
Right.
I do feel sorry for a working journalist who cannot afford to do that, who's trying to cover Apple and doesn't, get any support. But that I think you sort of hit upon it. I think when the complaint that some people will have is that when you really peel the onion and get to the very core of it, it's that Company X did not send me a free one of these for 30 days, and they did not send it to me early.
Neither of these things will prevent you from writing about that product.
It's not the end of the world.
If you don't have it on, if they didn't send you one and you have it available on release day, you're perfectly welcome to go buy one on your own. If you can't buy one on your own, you probably know somebody who has access to one. And if you don't have that, there are ways to get your hands on one that don't involve theft. The only thing that I really don't like about these sort of conversations is that it comes down to a sense of entitlement that hey, look, I have a big audience, I should be getting a certain amount of treatment, or hey, look, you don't know who I am, you should be helping me out as much as you possibly can.
You know, unfortunately, and this is a problem I have, anytime I talk about it, that's what it ends up sounding like. I'm being peevish.
Oh, I know.
And I don't mean to be peevish. In fact, Mike says clearly, at the end of his article at the Cult of Mac, the technology press is far more independent and ethical than people generally give them credit for. Yes, Apple has a blacklist. And yes, you should know about it so you can be a better informed media consumer and consumer electronics customer, but ultimately, it's not that big of a deal. So he really agrees with what you're saying.
I think there's a lot of freedom in not being stuck.
I love it. I don't talk to PR people. I don't go to company events. I don't take vendor meetings because in the long run, it's better for me and my coverage not to have a relationship with companies. And so, go ahead.
It's not for me. I mean, I really enjoy having a dialogue with the company that makes these things, because sometimes only when you're sitting in a room with somebody and they are explaining to you why they built this thing, why they think this is important, why they went ahead with this product, and especially if you're there in the room and you get to really look into their eyes and see, am I the 11th person that is being read this script that they came up with? Or if I ask them questions that make them go off script, am I going to see the exact same amount of childlike pleasure? You know, I still the apex has always been for me. You know, Steve Jobs presenting the iPhone and Steve Jobs presenting the iPad. You saw a guy who was like giddy with excitement, like he was unwrapping a gift for the entire world. And so I don't necessarily believe that it's important to maintain a distance, because sometimes I will look at a product without benefit of the story around it and not get why someone was making this. And it's not as though my opinions will be changed by hearing from the engineers who came up with this certain feature or lobbied for this or that. But it's sometimes interesting to hear that backstory, because that's a perspective that you don't have. So that's
so much more logical, Andy, than picturing them actually spending energy. You know, oh, let's put this guy on the list.
Yeah,
you know, where do we keep the list? Yeah, I just can't picture a corporation like Apple doing that. I can picture a meeting.
Oh,
going,
I can.
Oh,
God, are you kidding, Allison?
No,
absolutely. They are. Look, they're humans. They can be petty. Absolutely, they've got a list.
I disagree. I really do think that it comes down to every single time. I think it comes down to how many. If we've got 8 copies of the new iPhone that we can give to people ahead of time, those are precious commodities. It's not who do we like or who do we not like. It's what are our goals with these 8 and only 8 pre-release devices.
I talk to more people about Macintosh products than anybody, except for the rare few. I do a radio show that's heard by 1 million people every weekend. I do MacBreak Weekly. And if Apple doesn't invite me to the event, it's not because I don't have a large and important pulpit. It's because they don't like me. It's very simple. I don't mean to be peevish about it. I'm not. I don't care. But there is definitely a list, and I'm on it. If there weren't, why wouldn't they invite me?
I don't think it comes down to like or not like. I think it comes down to goals. That's all.
Come on. I talk to Andy. Andy. I have a syndicated radio show that talks to 200 stations, talks to 1 million people every weekend about what products to buy, and you think that that's not important to Apple? More than USA Today, more than Wall Street Journal, more than New York Times? It should be. If it's not, then they're not paying attention.
The argument that I'm making is with the word like. You know, Apple is a company. They are 10,000 people.
I'm just saying. No. I'm merely saying. I'm merely saying that the reasonable business decision would be to curry favor with me, which they don't do. And my suggestion is they don't do it. And it's fine with me, by the way. I wouldn't take it. But it's fine with me. But the reasonable reason is, you know, there was very much of a cliff where I went from being favored to unfavored. It was obvious to me. Yeah. I don't care about that. I don't want to go to their events. But the point is, I'm pointing out, there's no question in my mind. It's obvious. And it's not because of whether I talk to people or not, or whether I have importance to their business. A prudent business decision would be to curry favor with one of the major mainstream tech reporters in the country, period. Right? They don't do it with John C. Dvorak either.
Again, my only difficulty is with like or not like, or whether they have.
No, I'm not saying they don't like me. I don't know whether they like me. I can't tell you that.
I'm saying that I have no knowledge of the inner desires or workings of Apple. I'm also saying that it's also not important to you or I that we know what their inner desires are.
No, it's not important at all. I do my same coverage exactly.
Because, well, yeah, it's not only.
But you can't tell me John Gruber has as much importance to Apple in the public eye.
I will tell you. I've people have asked me about this. I've given them the exact same answer. The reason why they work so closely with Gruber is huge audience. Not only that, but a huge international audience.
A much bigger audience. 10 times the audience of Gruber. Are you kidding me? He has a specialist audience.
He has credibility, and also he gets Apple, and that doesn't mean that if you don't get Apple, you're wrong. I'm saying that his thinking. I'm saying I believe that his way of thinking about what is the role of design, what is the role of hardware, what is the interaction between a company and its customers and a product and its customers are very much in sync with Apple. So when people inside Apple read his stuff, they hear a kindred spirit speaking,
and they know he's not going to go off the ranch. He's predictable.
I think that I don't know of any thinking inside of Apple, but my guess would be that they know that if he went off the ranch, it would be because he felt very deliberately about it. He wouldn't do it accidentally. He wouldn't do it carelessly, and he would express his sentiments very, very closely. That's all. So all I'm saying is that what every single person who is not a bozo wants is for their own work to tell the story of what kind of professional they are. And I think that I think that readers are very, very good at telling that this person, this person got a piece of hardware and he wrote 1,000 words on this piece of hardware, and 800 words of it were how cool it was to get hardware from Apple. This guy's a bozo. I don't care what he's saying. Also, from the flip side, if you write 2,000 words on a certain laptop, and you're saying that this was I won't identify the columnist. It wasn't me, but it was like it's still like the hallmark of bad tech reporting for me. That here's the new titanium Mac PowerBook, but it's okay, but you shouldn't buy it because Apple's going to go out of business. It's like a 1,000-word review. You spent 800 words talking about what you think is the death of the company. Again, that's bozo behavior. If you build up your own reputation, everything the ship will ride itself. You will get safely into the port under calm seas.
I agree. Nobody's saying that. We're not even discussing that. That's not even the issue. The issue is, does Apple try to manipulate the press with a blacklist?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think that if they thought that they could manipulate this person, that they know that this person is of little value to them. They don't just want somebody to write nice things about them. I'm saying,
really? You think the person's of little value to them if they know that they can get a good story out of them?
What's valuable? Okay, it's easy. I'm saying it's very, very easy to get a good story. Again, if you walked into the Apple store, found somebody who knows how to operate Tumblr, and say, "I'll give you this free MacBook Air if you write something about it," they'll get a lot of good press about it. They'll get a lot of good Tumblr posts about it. What they want is, again, somebody with a large audience, someone with a reputation, so that when that person decides to use that reputation as a spotlight to swing it to this product, to say, I want all of you people who read me or listen to me or watch me to take a look at this because I think it's important enough that you look at this because I'm interested in it as well. That's what the value is. There are very, very few high value people like that who can be manipulated, because by the time you've developed that kind of a reputation, you're no longer dazzled by the idea, oh well, I got to borrow a free Nexus 5 for 2 weeks. This is awesome. That's what I mean when I'm saying that Apple wants a high value person to speak highly of their products, and those people are not the sort of people who are going to be swayed by the idea of getting something early.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Kevin Abosh? He's a Hollywood photographer. If you go to his website, you'll see portraits of Dennis Hopper, Scarlett Johansson, Johnny Depp, Dustin Hoffman. Great photographer. He also has a good friend, a friend named Tony Fidel. And apparently Tony came over the other day to Kevin's house with his newest acquisition. Tony Fidel, of course, of Nest, former iPod designer, seems to have bought some solid gold earbuds. And
it Fidel, it was a friend of his.
Was it a friend or was it Tony that bought them?
He denied it that it was him.
And then Tony Fidel with a red Mac Pro, and apparently he's already trying to hack it. So that answers one question. They did deliver the red Mac Pro right away. They didn't wait. You saying if he's trying to hack it, but it's not his, I think it's his.
Yeah, no, he put out a statement. He said that, trying to find it. He said that he was not the owner, but he had access to them.
iFixit sent out a request.
To be clear, I'm not the owner of either. The real owner will reveal themselves if they so choose.
iFixit. Can we do a teardown?
We'll give it right back. It'll be in the same, condition.
Exactly, and you'll have a manual on how to do it yourself.
Just think of how many people are going to watch it before it's even been released.
iFixit. Come on, call Tony. So Tony said it's not mine. It's a friend of mine. Who would that be?
He was not going to reveal it. He said it's up to his friend to reveal who it is.
Well, he shoots for a lot of actors, so it could be.
Abosh does.
Abosh does.
Could be a friend of Tony's and Abosh's, right? Like Johnny Depp. It could be Johnny Depp's new iMac. To be clear, I'm not the owner of either. The real owner will reveal themselves if they so choose. I don't know if I buy that.
You did have to say that in the first picture, it looks like every medieval panel of Mary and the newborn Jesus in the manger. Come let us adore the rose-colored first one. The first one with the earbuds.
Oh, the earbuds. Oh, come let us adore him.
In excelsis Deo.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes. Just like Photoshop a manger around those earbuds.
Unto us a child has been born.
We're waiting for it. For those of you, we're waiting for that picture to be sent to Twit.
Wow!
During the show,
he is gazing upon it lovely.
Let's get a newborn.
Tony's the guy who designed the iPod, so this would be kind of a big deal for him, right? I mean, rose gold, solid rose gold earbuds designed by Johnny Ive. Do you think Johnny Ive bought it? No.
Yeah, Tony was holding it for him.
I'm wondering if he did buy the table. I wonder if he bought something off of that list. There must have been something that was so cool that, I don't know. Especially if he could have it and it'd be tax deductible.
I love the picture Kevin took of himself in the reflection of the red Mac Pro. That's a nice picture, too.
That's instant lock screen.
Yeah. Holy, I wonder who... Okay, I mean, you should be able to try... If we were the NSA, we could tell with the metadata that we already have who it was. Who's in the reflection?
Call Snowden. I bet you he's got.
Is there? You know what? Let's get somebody. Okay. What do they do in Blade Runner? Zoom center.
Yeah. Rotate a little more.
Zoom in.
Print that.
Because there's somebody in that reflection. I swear to God. I see a camera, but who's this person? I'm telling you, I want you guys to get to work on this. There's something in here.
Could be Joe Rubenstein.
Who would it be? Who has that kind of money? What, this sold for almost $1 million.
Yeah.
The two together, like $1.25 million. That's a lot of money to throw away on a home theater PC.
Estate.
Do you think it's Laureen?
Okay, now.
I know.
To Alpha Team, who's now photoshopping the manger scene, I want to now create Bravo Team. There are companies that will like shrink wrap things, like they shrink wrap cars. When you get a Mac Pro, get one of these companies to shrink wrap in red, take it down to a Genius bar just for routine service, and see if they say anything.
Yeah, can you imagine the guy coming into the Genius bar with the red Mac Pro?
He gets it home. It's a black one. Oh well, you had a bad launch report. We just swapped you out a free one. We know that's out of warranty, but hey, we're awesome. I wanted that. I don't know.
It's had aftermarket modifications. We're sorry.
We managed to scrape off the paint job that some loser put it on. My God, anyone goes to Home Depot and gets a can of spray paint, they think they know more than Johnny Ive about how these things should look.
It's like Star Trek when they color corrected the green girl.
I have a theory. I'm gonna do some digging. I think we could triangulate this.
If this was a cop show in 1983 when computers were starting to become very popular, they would have solved this in about 8 seconds.
I'm telling you, zoom in on that.
I've got a friend at JPL.
All right, I'm going to do some. All right.
Is Alex getting nervous? Is it Alex's picture in the Mac Pro?
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's averting his gaze. He really is.
I'm not listening to you.
It's like no way out.
The thing was, though, didn't Tony Fadell actually take it along? So it must be a really, really close friend of his, if it's not his, to actually, you sure take my $1 million Mac Pro and these solid gold earbuds and go and show them to your friend?
Well, no. Here's what happened. It's going to be a friend of the two of them, right? Because the guy came over to Abosh's house, brought his new toys. Tony Fidel came over, and they were playing with it. They took pictures. The guy said, don't take a picture of me. So it means it's somebody we'd recognize. I'm going to vote for John Lasseter.
Maybe.
That would be my guess.
Interesting.
It's going to be a Hollywood type, but somebody who has an appreciation of Macintosh. You know, Pixar, of course, they render stuff like crazy. It's
not me, because I don't want that rumor to take hold. It's definitely not me.
I
don't know how these rumors get started, except for on shows like this. So don't start telling people that I'm the guy who.
And it's definitely not in the basement.
I think we need to track it back. Who is Kevin Abosh friends with?
My R2-D2 housing over back there.
It is, by the way, we should point out tax deductible because for charity, just in case.
Also, the Apple
See if
Care
anyone
is
has matching
$8.1
transactions
million.
coming out of their bank account.
And it's going to be somebody who has a love for Apple and a love for Macintosh, right? Otherwise, you'd have bought the Leica.
I don't know. It could have been just there are probably 4 or 5 really high-profile, cool things in that auction. Called the Earbuds, the Mac Pro, the Leica, the table, and I probably came up with the 5. But there are lots of cool things there. But there are 4 or 5 that were really high-profile, really cool. Oh,
it's fun to have friends with Photoshop skills. How can we? Can you?
Here, I'll send that over to you.
Send me that image.
I beat you all.
While we were talking, Alex Lindsay made a little picture for us. He does. He's gazing. He's gazing with wonder.
And it's even gold. Did you see that? It took me a lot of time to find that
You
one.
got rose gold, baby Jesus. Is it Ashton Kutcher? He's not rich enough. Is it Wozniak? He's not rich enough. You know who's rich enough? John Lasseter. I'm telling you. That's who it is.
It's that they bought both of them, Leo. They couldn't just leave, not just one of them. They had to buy both of them.
Is he going to use his Mac Pro wearing the earbuds?
Have to.
You got to do exactly. You got to do that. If you own both of them, he should have the Mac Pro listening to the music through the earbuds on top of that aluminum table, wearing the spacesuit, and then take a picture of it with a Leica camera, just to show that he is the captain, the captain of all the geezer days. Yes.
It's got to be somebody who has a thing for Apple. That's why Fidel is there. Somebody in L.A.? Okay. And did you send that via email?
Yeah.
All right. I will show you what Alex was doing for the last 3 minutes. You are good. You are fast. I don't know how you do that so fast.
You know. I've used Photoshop for a little while.
Have you?
Yes.
You know something about that program?
I've worked at it. I can remember when Photoshop didn't have layers.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. I remember when Photoshop didn't have colors.
Yeah, that was a big like, oh my gosh, we have layers. Like we don't have to keep on saving versions of this file over and over again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Fidel and the Second Coming. Oh, come let us. This is so sacrilegious. No, that's just a little baby.
Alex Lindsay, you win the $20 gift card to Outback Steakhouse. Please contact me with your mailing information.
It is the right look, though. You nailed it.
Come let him adore him. Absolutely. I have no sun nor no goats. It's just snow everywhere.
You might have goats. They'd be buried under the snow.
You hear an occasional muffled bah, and that's about all you
Spring comes and there's goats.
Yep.
So
it was a sound effect for when Andy was talking about his beard and
but you're not connected
I didn't
to
get
the
it up in time.
sound system.
I know. I was going to show it to you and then have you play it.
It's
it was all
human
all
voice screaming goats on YouTube.
It all made sense before the show started. I wasn't going to talk about it.
Is that it?
Yeah. When Andy was talking about the neighbors complaining about the sound.
Do not buy that goat, whatever that is. What kind of goat is that?
What are those kids doing down there?
Just a lot of goats.
Unless you're trying to fabricate an ironclad alibi for something absolutely horrible you're planning for 6 weeks in the future.
It's the goats. There's a goat in my basement.
That was my thought of the sound of someone trying to pull all your facial hair out.
You just don't want to be like.
You gotta see the video.
I don't know why that's so funny.
See, here's all I got to say is that we work hard on this show. We work hard on this show. And how many views do we get on YouTube? Like, thousands, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000.
Apparently there's Bon Jovi, there's Weezer. It's like whoever's got the screaming goat just is sticking it everywhere.
And we're not even talking about the whole...
I knew you were a goat when you walked in. I hope you've enjoyed this best of episode. MacBreak Weekly is back at our... new time or old time, Chad? Again, I don't remember. We've got a new schedule. Same time. So this will not change. 11 a.m. every Tuesday. That is 1 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 1900 UTC every Tuesday for the latest Mac news and analysis with Andy Anako, Renee Ritchie, and the gang. I think we had a great year. Thanks to you, and I hope we'll have a wonderful 2014. Hope you will too. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on MacBreak Weekly. Bye-bye.